6 a.m. Good Friday morning from the 104.5 The Zone studios. I'm Justin Hawkins. In NFL news, the Aaron Rodgers saga is officially over as he is headed to the Steel City and intends to sign a one-year deal with the Pittsburgh Steelers per multiple reports. The 41-year-old four-time MVP let the Steelers know he intends to fly to Pittsburgh today and sign before next week's mandatory minicamp. So, this season, it'll be Aaron Rodgers' 21st NFL season this year, and he will kick it off against New York and the Jets in Week 1, and will also face the Packers in Week 8. It'll be his first time playing Green Bay. In other NFL news yesterday, Indianapolis Colts quarterback Anthony Richardson is sidelined with a shoulder injury, and he'll miss minicamp next week per head coach Shane Steichen. The shoulder injury is reported to be lingering from the 2023 injury he faced against the Titans, and which caused him to miss the remainder of that season. To the NBA Finals, where it got off to a thrilling start last night, the Indiana Pacers stunned the Oklahoma City Thunder 111-110 and take a 1-0 series lead thanks to Tyrese Halliburton's clutch jumper with 0.3 of a second remaining in the game. The Pacers never led in the game until Halliburton's jumper. OKC Shai Gilgeous-Alexander had a game-high 38 points, but it proved to not be enough. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, you've got to go to USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Happy Friday on 104.5 The Zone. Good morning. And welcome in to Ramon and Will streaming live on 104.5 The Zone TV on your FM radio dial, as well as the 104.5 The Zone app. We are fueled by Scooters Coffee, locally owned near you in Rivergate, Smyrna, Brentwood, White House, or Mount Juliet. Amazing people, amazing drinks, amazingly fast. Coming up this morning, a loaded lineup starting at 7:20 with VolQuest's Brent Hubbs, Chris Burke of ESPN stopping by at 8:20, previewing Tennessee versus Arkansas, and of course, Ron Slay on a Friday. On this, June the 6th, Rhett Bryant is back in for Ramon Foster. My name is Will Bowling, and of course, Justin Hawkins is behind the glass. Rhett, good morning.
Good morning. It is Friday, and man, I'm glad.
We're ready to act like it.
We are ready to act like it. And let me say this. You know me and the weather. I watch it constantly.
Yes.
You might want to just keep your eyeballs on the weather. Not a lot of tornadic properties in this. It's not zero, but it's low.
Okay.
But it's going to be when this front comes in, and they're talking about early afternoon, just prior to rush hour, if there is such a thing in national traffic anymore. But that's neither here nor there. Wind event, heavy rain, thunderstorms kind of deal. Wind being the emphasis. Something got my attention when I looked at the forecast last night, and one of the people I trust said that this could be a wind derecho type event.
Oh, interesting.
And I watched it forming back in Oklahoma this morning.
Sure.
And listen, if you don't know what a derecho is, holy Moses.
Yeah.
It's just a wall of wind, basically. And sometimes they're just waves and walls of wind. But it's wild how they came up with this term and what the qualifications are. It has to have some sustained winds of like 58 miles an hour or stronger on a long track of 400 miles and a swath 60 miles.
Goodness.
Yeah. And if you've ever seen YouTube videos of that stuff where it's happened up in the Midwest, north of here,
right?
It's kind of weird. I don't know if that's exactly what's going to happen, but just kind of keep, tune in, check your weather sources.
Okay.
Just keep your eyeballs, because there's a chance of severe weather next 3 days.
Yeah. Okay.
That does not bode well for my moving plans.
No. I didn't know you were moving
Exactly.
this weekend.
Oh, no.
Moving's not fun, even when it's like 65 degrees and sunny outside.
There's no opportune time, none whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
Now, let me say this, Justin, for your moving plans, I don't think it's hanging out long, and I think you'll have some respite and lulls in between. And we got to see what it happens, because, listen, here's the other thing I'll tell you about meteorologists in this market, and it's no slight to them whatsoever, but they don't really know anything till it crosses into Memphis and really over the Tennessee River, because we live in a basin, we live in a bowl in Middle Tennessee, and then the jet stream fluctuates over us constantly.
Sure.
So there's lots of variables there. That's why in the wintertime, sometimes it's like, well, this winter weather event, Well, south of the I-40 corridor and going down 65 is ice, and everything north is snow.
Exactly.
And sometimes, it's just because all these fluctuations and variances of this stuff. So just be weather aware, not trying to set up, red alarms or anything.
So what you're saying is lots of straps.
Yeah, for real.
Yes, because it is, again, a wind event is what it mostly is, and obviously rain and those things.
Sure.
But very low tornadic values. So just keep your eyes.
You found a place and have done this process very quickly, I feel like. we were just talking about you were on your way to go look at a place and get it.
Yeah, 2 weeks ago. I had to leave early, and then we got the place, and then we're moving. Now, we actually don't move out of our current place until the end of the month, but so this process went a little bit faster than we wanted it
to.
But, so we're excited.
Time is of the essence.
How packed up are you?
Going.
No.
You're not packed up
in
yet?
a word.
And we start today.
Okay, lovely.
He said in a word.
Fantastic.
No.
We
pray for Jayhawk today.
We probably have half of our stuff packed up.
Okay.
And the other stuff is more essential stuff that needs to just be thrown in a box. But it'll take all weekend. But at least we have all of June.
Yeah, that's the way to do it, is give yourself a range. I had to move twice in the last calendar year. I don't recommend ever doing that. And from a cockroach infestation for one of the times.
Ooh, you never want to move because of that.
That was about exactly a year ago. I was fighting the cockroaches and fighting my old building. It was so much fun.
Speaking of cockroaches, I found 2 in our place last night.
Oh.
It's a good thing we're moving.
The old place, yeah, for real.
Yeah. Again, timing is everything.
What's the saying? If you find 2, then there's 200 or something like that?
Yeah, something like that. Well, I actually did some research. If you find a big one, it's probably just a random occurrence. But if you find a small one,
you're
that's the infestation.
The offspring are somewhere nearby.
It's terrible. Yeah. Don't recommend that. 615-737-1045 if anyone was thinking about getting cockroaches in their apartment. I don't recommend it. Rhett, big day yesterday for quarterbacks. We'll talk about it throughout the morning. Of course, Aaron Rodgers finally signing in Pittsburgh. Anthony Richardson out with no timetable for return. Shane Steichen saying he hopes to have him back by training camp from an AC joint injury that he originally suffered against the Titans on a hit by Harold Landry as he continues to work his way back to full health, re-injuring it this week. Rodgers, of course, Rhett, the big domino, and it feels like we've already talked about this every way that we possibly could, and we've just been waiting for it to happen, and now it's finally happened.
I feel like we spoke it into existence because we're like, you would think that they're going to have to do something because we brought up the proposed trade yesterday on the show by Ben Solak of maybe moving for Kirk Cousins in this. And the last thing I said to you, as it pertains to Jeffrey Simmons coming to camp here and all those things, it's not a story till it's a story. And because mandatory mini camps are next week, that's where that kind of pushes that forward. Not that, Mason Rudolph is capable. And, they've got a couple of arms in camp, but they need the starter. And this is, I went back and looked at it. March 21st was the day he went to the Steelers facility and spent 6 hours there and I think did a workout and talked to everybody or whatever. And then it's been nothing since. Cryptic messages or whatever. So time, is now. And I'm glad, I don't know if it's Coach Tomlin. I don't know if it's the general manager. Somebody was like, hey, we kind of need to know what's going on here because because when you get to minicamp, that's where the final process of the installation of the 3 phases are, and you're, working. That's why that Cam Ward and them were working on third down the other day, and they've been working on high and low red zone stuff. You're getting the installation part of this, and so, because the mini camp is the last thing, and then everybody breaks and goes to the 4 corners of the world because that's their vacation, come back, and then it's go time.
Totally. 2021, Aaron Rodgers still was playing at a very high level, 74.1 QBR in 2021. That is higher than Russell Wilson or Kirk Cousins have had since 2012. So even though Aaron Rodgers has deteriorated over time, still in the last 5 years, you had some semblance of high-level quarterback play. In 2024, Aaron Rodgers, 25th in QBR in the NFL, 48.0. He had Garrett Wilson. He had Devontae Adams for 11 games. That just never was a team that really clicked, where the sum of their parts really made a good team. But Rodgers was partly to blame for that. To me, And I heard Ramon talking about it a little bit yesterday on 3HL at his visit with them, and I'm looking forward to getting his full thoughts on the show next week, Rhett. But culturally, it just doesn't make sense to me. And I'm curious to see how Aaron Rodgers can earn the respect of his teammates in a short amount of time, because Ramon's point yesterday was, when we signed big-time players in Pittsburgh, you still had to kind of prove it. You still had to win us over on the practice field and in the locker room. And there is already a standard and there is already an expectation just in that Pittsburgh locker room that I get maybe has declined over the past few seasons, where they've not been as much of a contender, more of just a participant in the playoffs or in kind of the middle of the NFL. But I think it's fascinating how the older guys like a Cam Hayward, like a TJ Watt, will adjust to sharing a locker room with Aaron Rodgers.
So there's a lot of moving parts to this. And you're right with the way that culture is. And as long as Mike Tomlin's been there setting the tone of that culture.
Sure.
But I thought it was interesting. Adam Schefter put that out yesterday. The Steelers and Aaron Rodgers need each other. And I think that's what this is.
Yeah, I do
culturally,
too.
Yeah, probably not a great fit. But they need somebody to do this. So the Steelers have lost 6 straight playoff games. Longest postseason losing streak in team history.
Wow.
Rodgers hasn't won a playoff game since the 2020 divisional playoff, a 32-18 win against the Rams in 2021. He goes further to say 1,601 days ago. The other part of this, and I understand from the position, I understand why they did it.
Right.
Because,
right.
I mean, look at his numbers. He still passed for almost 4,000 yards, 28 touchdowns, 11 interceptions.
The box score is not bad for him last year.
It's not. It's really not. I think the interesting dynamic to this is the last handful of years post Ben Roethlisberger. Obviously, they've been through 5 quarterbacks in that time, and that hasn't been that long ago.
Right.
But they have really leaned into the emphasis of strong defense and run game. Old school, like Titans football.
For sure.
In fact, last year, there were only 3 other teams that ran the ball more times than Najee Harris and company and Jalen Warren and those guys.
Right.
So that's the part about this that's going to be interesting to see what develops. And look, there's some weapons for his disposal. We talked about Pat Freiermuth yesterday, clearly DK Metcalf. And DK Metcalf, man, you don't realize what kind of career that guy's had already.
Yeah.
I mean, he's been very close to having 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 straight 1,000-yard receiving seasons. Like his seasons where he didn't bust that mark, it's high triple digits.
Yeah, it is, right.
So, and obviously they deal George Pickens to the Cowboys because that had become problematic.
Right.
But Roman Wilson, I mean, they've got some other wideouts in this. And obviously some backs to work out of the backfield. But he's got weapons at his disposal. I think the interesting thing is what they've done in trying to retool the offensive line. Now, Dan Moore's the left tackle here, and they've invested lots of draft capital in the last 2 or 3 drafts into that offensive line.
They certainly have. They are the soft rebuild kind of team in the AFC that is trying to retool a lot of different things while competing and while still being competitive. I mean, Broderick Jones in at left tackle now, Troy Fautanu, the second-year man out of Washington, Zach Frazier, the young center. Then you've got the right guard, Mason McCormick, who's a 4th-round pick out of 2024. So, I mean, their entire offensive line at this point, aside from Isaac Samalo, the left guard, has been drafted in the past 2 drafts.
Isn't that wild?
That's crazy.
That tells you where that emphasis has been.
Or the last 3 drafts, I guess,
Yeah.
25, 24, and 23, because Broderick Jones was their 1st-round pick in 2023. And that is ideally, Rhett, the way you want an offensive lineman to come through. If you are a competing team, and maybe not offensive lineman, maybe more tackle. Like if you have a left tackle, the way the Titans drafted Taylor Lewan when they still had Michael Roos and still had tackles here, you do that when you don't need a tackle, and then you put him in year 3, and you hope that Broderick Jones is ready to step in right away and be a lot better now than he was, back in 2023 if he had to be thrown in as a rookie.
And the other part of it, too, is they're clearly, you mentioned a soft rebuild. You just mentioned all those draft picks in the last 3 drafts. And how do you build it? Inside out. You start in the trenches.
Right.
So
Totally.
there's where that is. And we haven't even gotten to the Anthony Richardson stuff. You touched on that. Apparently, Harold Landry broke him there in, week 5 of 2023 in Indianapolis.
Crazy.
Because this is the same AC joint that was injured and surgically repaired. And he missed the rest of that season. And listen, the whispers in Indianapolis are becoming louder that he might not be him.
Crazy.
And look, when you look, hindsight's always 20/20. I keep going back to some research and looking through things about what the median starts in college for a quarterback to have a successful college quarterback, which is a general term. But I go back to the stuff that Daniel Jeremiah and Bucky Brooks did. About 39 and a half starts in college is the median range. That's the floor of where you want a quarterback you can draft that. And again, success is, in their definition, was some winning seasons. Maybe you won a playoff game. Maybe you won a division playoff, a division title. Maybe you won a Super Bowl. And the only two outliers under that median of 39 and a half is Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen.
Crazy.
The rest, you can go, okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. I mean, like Mitch Trubisky, I think he had 11 starts at North Carolina.
Right.
Mitch Trubisky's a backup quarterback.
Yeah, 100%. So we'll talk more about that here in hour 1 as we get things started on this Friday morning. 615-737-1045. A lot of quarterback news to dive into this morning in the AFC. But coming up next, one of the most crowded position battles on the Titans roster heading into mandatory minicamp next week. That's next. Ramon Will, 104.5 The Zone, getting started on this Friday. You made it to the end of the week, and Will, I'll get you a little bit closer to your weekend. We are fueled by Scooters Coffee. Visit a locally owned location near you in Rivergate, Smyrna, Brentwood, White House, or Mount Juliet. Amazing people, amazing drinks, amazingly fast. Rhett Bryan in for Ramon Foster. I'm Will Bowling. So, Rhett, as we take a look at the most crowded position battles on the Tennessee Titans roster here as we transition into mandatory minicamp next week. Feels like we have to start at wide receiver because there are 13 of them currently on the roster. And you and I going through this at the break, there are probably 5 as of today who feel pretty good about their chances of making the roster.
And just knowing that, kind of like when the schedule came out, nearly a month ago, it's like a chameleon. It changes.
Yeah, right.
Well, so does this stuff because the variables obviously are health, injuries,
right?
People peaking at the right time, people being consistent more than anything. So, 13 wide receivers in this group right now as it stands. And, you start looking at what could be. And outside of about the top 3 or 4, you really start to go, okay, but what about this? And what about, so let's walk through that. So I think you and I are in agreement that obviously Calvin Ridley is 1.
Right.
Tyler Lockett is 2 or right in the neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
I have the 2 draft picks making it.
Agreed.
Chim DK, 1 because of the speed. That's one of the reasons they drafted him. But his real key to the whole thing is his special teams efforts there. And if he can become the return guy,
right,
then if he's John Bones Fossil's guy, then there's his ticket right there. And I'm not reducing him just to that. It's just that's the most easy way that you can latch yourself onto a roster.
100%. You got to be able to do something else at the wide receiver position for sure.
Yeah, and especially when you're not a top
right, when you're not 1 or 2 for sure.
And then I've got Alec Iomanner making the roster. And the reason I say Alec Iomanner, he and Chim DK both, I think, over in time will prove to be value picks where they were taken because the way I would describe the 2 practices I've seen Alec Iomanner, he is a smooth player.
It's a good way to put it.
He is not, herky-jerky, and he can be explosive from his breaks, but he's just really smooth. He kind of glides in and out of the top of his routes and things, and he just, there's a graceful part of what I don't see any kind of disjointed, herky-jerky, like I've got to go prove. He just kind of glides through it. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just his style.
He kind of towers over a lot of those other receivers, too. He is a big dude, Alec Iomanner. He is a tall, long wide receiver.
Yeah. Yeah, he is. So that leaves former first-round pick Treylon Burks. And I don't want to say disparaging things because Ron Slay is coming in here at 9 o'clock, and that's his guy. And listen, yep. I want Treylon Burks to be Treylon Burks. But Treylon's coming off of an injury. Coach Callahan was asked about his weight the other day, and, of course, he moved around the question as a coach would. Mm-hmm. And in fairness to Treylon, he's coming off of an injury. So, right. But I don't know what that looks like.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And I think, too, Brian Callahan made the point that it is still going to be a process for Treylon, who is, they're being smart with what they ask him to do this early in the process. And Callahan said it in his press conference on Tuesday that, like any player recovering from a major injury, he still needs time to, grow slowly into full go at practice. And I'm not sure he's there quite yet.
And this is also where, Chad Brinker and these guys in the front office and the evaluators are still in the middle of this pretty significant overhaul of the scouting department and evaluation as it pertains to tracking steps, miles, exertion, energy, reps, all these things. And, they keep upgrading that in practice with those trackers that they put in their uniform to see, okay, you know what, you ran extra today and you exerted yourself here. Let's back you off a notch and give you a maintenance. That's how that stuff is leaning towards. And then, Colton Dowell, Wilson Central High School product that everybody's rooting for, coming off of a significant injury.
Exactly. He popped up a little bit the other day in practice. He made some plays.
He did. He did indeed.
A couple of those even, and the Titans have so many guys that can run a deep crosser is the thing right now. Like, we're the guys who specialize explosive athletes over the middle of the field who can take it and run with it. And that's what Cam Ward made his money on at Miami, was deep crossers over the middle, 10 to 20 yards down the field. And a couple of those where Colton Dowell popped up and just made a nice catch between his own and found a way to move the chains on third down there the other day. I noticed him specifically like, oh, okay, Colton Dowell, all right.
And in stride and kept moving.
He is not someone to totally discount in this thing, because he also gives you special teams ability in this as well.
So Van Jefferson, another local tie.
Yeah.
Comes in on a free agent deal, and he's a veteran presence there. And God, if anybody knows how to run a route and, catch a football, it would be him, just because of his father alone.
Right.
Like Sean would come up and get after him if he wasn't doing it right.
Totally.
And that's a guy you don't have to worry about. But where is he in this mix? Jaquan Jackson, the draft pick from Tulane, I think he fell out of favor some in the return game with some issues he had there. So he's still trying to, carve out his spot. And Bryce Oliver, who has worked his way into the special team stuff and then started to get some reps on the field. Had a touchdown last year late that was negated by a penalty. It would have been his first touchdown in this. Tay Martin is there, who's been, with him about the same time they've been together in this. And then you get down to James Prochet, also another, from SMU.
Core teamer.
Been around, core teamer, had been around the block. He's going to make that stuff difficult. And then maybe the main conversation is the camp battle between Xavier Restrepo and Mason Kinsey.
Yes.
Because Mason Kinsey, you got to admire he just won't go away.
He's got staying power. He does.
He really does. And I think the coaches love that. They love his exuberance. They love his work. And he just keeps showing up. And when his number's been called, he's been very helpful.
Yes.
And so, but everybody's wanting to draw a straight line to Xavier Restrepo because who the quarterback is. Mm-hmm. And that may end up being the case. But, man, I'm glad I don't have to figure out, A, how many receivers do they keep, and B, who are they past the top 3 or 4?
Exactly. So if the Titans are keeping similar numbers than what they did last year, just for the sake of conversation, the Titans kept 6 wide receivers last season. It was DeAndre Hopkins, Calvin Ridley, Tyler Boyd, NWI, Traylon Burks, Jaquan Jackson. That was their 6 out of camp last year. To me, Rhett, I feel like they keep 7 as of today. Now, there's a lot of time and a lot of preseason and, God forbid, injuries and different things that will pop up between
it's early
now
is
and
what
then.
you're saying.
Way
yes.
too early to make any kind of designation of this guy's in, this guy's out, all that stuff. However, I do think the numbers game is pretty clear that you have got anywhere between 6 or 7 guys battling for 1 or 2 spots. Because if you feel like Tyler Lockett and Calvin Ridley are in Sharpie, Chim DK and Elikai Manor are in Sharpie, I think Van Jefferson is leaning towards in as well. That's 5 wide receivers. And if, just for the sake of conversation, you were keeping the same amount as you were last year, so that's, 5 guys off the list there out of 13. You've got 8 guys competing for 1 spot. To me, it's probably more like 8 guys competing for 2 spots, because I don't know if they keep 5 tight ends again this year, but they've also added another guy into that mix, and Gunnar Helm, and they've not really subtracted anyone else aside from Nick Vannett. So to me, the way I look at it, Rhett, is the differentiation of what roles each of these guys play. Tyler Lockett and Calvin Ridley are going to be Swiss Army knives that are moved around a little bit of everywhere. Last season, Tyler Lockett, Rhett, I think that's one storyline that's really interesting, is how the Titans used Tyler Lockett. Because he had 545 snaps out wide last season, 215 in the slot. He is a guy that is built like a slot receiver at 5'10", but he's actually played more outside than he has inside, especially later in his career. I'm curious how Brian Callahan wants to deploy him in this offense, because that might affect what the Titans decide to do with Xavier Restrepo or Mason Kinsey or Jaquan Jackson if you want Lockett more as an inside receiver with Elikiah Manor and Van Jefferson as more outside options.
Well, the beauty there is because of Tyler Lockett's skill set. He gives you availability to flex in and out. Like the thing that's always been impressive about Tyler Lockett, he has played bigger than he is.
Yes. Let's go.
Plays outside of his range and frame. He's just a great natural pass catcher who runs great routes. He's all the things you want. And when you look, I mean, consistency has been the model for him. And then what he brings into this group as a pro. I mean, Calvin Ridley is a vet, yes. James Prochet is a vet, yes. But Tyler Lockett, I mean, he's not just a bag of chips, man. No. I mean, he's done a lot of good things.
He's the kind of receiver, too, that hasn't always relied upon elite athleticism. What I mean by that is he's not just always been bigger and faster than everyone. He's had to find ways at 5'10" and whatever his actual weight is, probably 180, 190, to be able to get open and protect himself. And that is why I have more hope for Tyler Lockett at this point of his career being closer to what he's always been than someone like a Julio Jones, who once he kind of lost that athleticism, kind of lost his fastball. Like, I think we're watching the same thing happen with Amari Cooper in real time up in Buffalo. Like, that guy is no longer bigger, stronger, and faster than everyone guarding him. With respect to Tyler Lockett, I don't know if he ever has been. He's just a very smart, crafty, technically elite wide receiver, and that's always been what he is.
So, yeah, you're saying if Brian Callahan's offense and the way they use him is more towards his natural attributes and skill set in the twilight years of his career,
100%,
it could serve both him and the Titans well.
Right.
And I think that also goes back to what we talked about yesterday with the interesting, to me, one of the main stories into what's going to end up being Cam Ward under center when they run out of the tunnel is how does Brian Callahan adapt this offense to Cam Ward's skill set? So then that's a major trickle-down effect with all of the other guys that he's trying to distribute the ball to in effect.
So that's wide receiver, and we could spend, an hour just on the different dynamic of that room and the different skill sets.
We got plenty of time to do this, too, coming up.
We do. No doubt.
Lots of things in the next few days and weeks to kind of cross off the list.
For sure. To me, there are two other battles, Rhett, that I think are crowded with a lot of question marks. And I think the next one is on the defensive line behind your front three, for spots behind Jeffrey Simmons, Tavondre Sweat, and Sebastian Joseph Day. So you have Keandre Coburn and James Lynch, who are brought back. Obviously, Coburn, the big nose tackle from Texas, and kind of a mentor last season for fellow Texas University graduate Tavondre Sweat. James Lynch, who's been around the block with the Titans a couple times now, who's done some good things. I believe he had a sack last season, James Lynch, for the Titans late in the year.
Big Red.
And then you have a wide array of undrafted guys. Cam Horsley, Devontae O'Malley, who we talked about the other day with you on Wednesday, Philip Bleedy, I hope I'm saying that right.
Yep, not Philip Bleedy Ray Wilson.
Right. That's exactly where my mind went. Isaiah Rakes, who is a kind of a big money, according to reports, undrafted rookie, and Carlos Watkins. There are a lot of guys that have not played NFL football on that too deep even, and there are opportunities there for some young guys to play in rotational roles behind Jeffrey Simmons, Tavondre Sweat, and Sebastian Joseph Day pretty quickly.
Well, let's go back to how you kind of put the pecking order as it stands right now. You would think, unless they find someone that has been waived, that would be an upgrade, that Keandre Coburn is the next person after that first three.
I would agree.
I think where we're talking about is who beats out James Lynch. And they really like James Lynch and what he brings to the table. Because now he can play teams. He can, he's a physical player. They call him Big Red for a reason.
Right.
And I think that's depending on what do they keep in interior defensive linemen last year? Can you look that up for a second?
Yes, I can. They kept 4.
Okay.
They kept Jeffrey Simmons, Tavondre Sweat, Sebastian Joseph Day, Keandre Coburn.
So really, it's who's going to beat out Keandre Coburn then, if we're being honest.
Sure.
And of all the young men that you discussed that are UDFAs, I mean, Devontae O'Malley is a great story. I think Cam Horsley is the one that had more notoriety in the pre-draft process because there was several people I trust that had Cam maybe be a late day 3 draft pick instead of a preferred free agent.
He got $15,000 in his signing bonus and $190,000 guaranteed from the Titans. Cam Horsley did.
And so that ain't chump change when you're not drafted. I mean, you're just like, for example, I told you about interviewing Jamari Harris, the cornerback from Iowa, who spent 6 years in that program with Kirk Ferentz as one of the UDFAs. Like, he got more in guaranteed money than I think Marcus Harris will get.
Wow.
As a late pick.
Sure.
From Cal.
Interesting.
So, that whole night, we can do a whole show on UDFAs.
100%.
Matt can tell you about working the phones and doing all that stuff. And then what guys are getting now, because if you don't have a bunch of late picks, you don't take a flyer on somebody or you trade some of those away, then when you're done, and I think that's what the Titans were trying to do in day 3 of the draft. It's like, all right, we're done with that now. Let's continue to work the phones and start putting 100%. Our list together of guys, and sometimes, and that's why it takes a while to get those UDFAs reported officially by the team, because that stuff, maybe they fail a physical. Maybe they change their mind and they go somewhere else and their agent is dictating some things. But
Cam
that's
Horsley,
a lot of stuff in there.
100%. Real quick on Cam Horsley, Chris Trapasso of CBS Sports 1 week ago did a column of one impact undrafted rookie for all 32 teams. Cam Horsley was his pick for the Titans to say this is the guy most likely to make an impact. He wrote in this at CBSSports.com last week, Cam Horsley was a candidate for hardest working, highest energy interior lineman of the 2025 class. The motor hummed loudly on every play at Boston College. At just under 6'3", 312, the nose tackle went over 30 tackles in each of his final 4 seasons with the Golden Eagles, hit double digits in the pressure department in all 5 seasons he spent in college, despite predominantly playing over the tackle or one technique, he says, and never seeing the field for more than 554 snaps in one campaign. Says serious mass and talent there behind Jeffrey Simmons and Tavondre Sweat. After that, there are plenty of jobs up for grabs, and I will not be surprised whatsoever if Horsley's energy is infectious in training camp with the preseason, enough for him to earn a spot on the 53.
There you go.
Interesting.
Great name, too, Cam Horsley.
That's right.
He sounds like he either came from a Western film.
Right.
Or,
there's Cam Horsley.
Cam Horsley's coming into town. Better lock up
his
all
horse. Horsley on his horse.
He's causing a ruckus over at the saloon.
And then, Rhett, quickly, the other battle I think is really interesting is tackle behind the front 2 guys in J.C. Latham and Dan Moore. Yeah. The incumbents in Jalen Duncan and John Ojukwu, Blake Hance, who they bring in from Jacksonville, who has started kind of as a Swiss Army knife in the interior on tackle position. And then one of their really big undrafted rookies, Brandon Crenshaw Dixon from Florida, $245,000 guaranteed.
Yep.
Is
$20K signing bonus.
Significant. As Ramon always says, follow the money.
Let me say this. In the 2 practices I've seen, Brandon Crenshaw Dixon is getting an education from Bill Callahan.
Yes, he is.
He is. He knows why players from other places that Bill Callahan has been. His nickname is Drill Callahan because he runs those dudes through all of those pieces of equipment that he has designed and patented. And works so well. Like his mind on those things. Whoa.
Crazy. So we'll get more back into that as the show goes, because I do think there's enough of a battle there going on at tackle to spend a little more time on that. But those, to me, the crowded position battles and wide receiver is going to take a lot of the headlines because I mean, they're catching passes from Cam Ward, and they have the ability to help Cam Ward quite a bit. But some interesting stuff to monitor, no doubt, going forward in a mandatory minicamp next week. When we come back, though, Anthony Richardson, sidelined with a shoulder injury. Major news of the AFC South that we'll dive into next. Hey, it's Will Bowling for my friends at Lee Company. Hey, summer is heating up, and so are the career opportunities over at Lee Company. Their team is hiring skilled tradespeople in HVAC, plumbing, electrical, sheet metal, and more. With 80-plus years in the business, Lee Company offers competitive pay, top-notch benefits, and free training to help you grow. So make your next move your best one yet with Lee Company. Apply today at leecompany.com/careers. That's leecompany.com/careers. Hey, I love working with Lee Company, because of their experience. They've been trusted since 1944. You do business for over 80 years. You learn how to do business the right way. And with 14 community locations here in Tennessee, Kentucky, and Alabama, they're involved in our communities. Lee Company with Little League, high school sports, local events, you name it. Lee Company, they are there in our communities just like me and you. 615-567-1000, how you call Lee Company. But head online, leecompany.com/careers to make your next move your best one. That's Lee Company, all you need. Ramon and Will, 104.5 The Zone is fueled by Scooters Coffee. Visit a locally owned location near you in Rivergate, Smyrna, Brentwood, White House, or Mount Juliet. 615-737-1045 is our number. And we remind you that Dad's Week on 104.5 The Zone is coming up. If you are looking for a gift for Dad this Father's Day, tune in June 9th through the 13th as we give you the chances to win Dad tickets to events, concerts, and more. This year, give Dad the best. Listen for a chance to win prizes from our friends such as the Atlanta Braves, Nashville SC, Nashville Sounds, Live Nation, and more. For more info, visit 1045thezone.com. I was with the Nashville Sounds last night playing against the Atlanta Braves AAA affiliate. A good time out there. Good night for baseball out at First Horizon Park.
That's a great park.
It's the best. 10 years that park has been there. It's the 10th season.
Wild to think about.
That blows my mind. I feel like I was in Greer Stadium hanging out with Ozzy, like recently, having a ice cream helmet on Purity Faith Night at Greer Stadium like yesterday.
Those were the days.
An ice cream helmet. Now, man, you talk about some nostalgia.
Oh,
That's a winner there. I can vividly remember going to Greer Stadium with our Boy Scout troop on a couple of different occasions.
yeah.
I remember seeing Buck Showalter,
Yeah.
Dave Rigetti.
Right?
There's several guys who are significant major league players that came through there. Don Mattingly, because I mean, it was at this time it
He's
was
the
it was an
headliner.
affiliate of the Yankees,
Right.
But yeah, some good memories in that place.
I love it. Yeah.
I always
First,
look forward to the field trips that we took to go see the Nashville Sounds. Like as a school, you go on field trips or whatever.
Yeah.
And so, we would go to the Nashville Sounds like on any given night, but that was at the old stadium. Man, what a time.
loved
Good stuff.
Greer Stadium. Had a lot of character to it. Anthony Richardson, Rhett Bryan, is going to be sidelined for a little while. An undetermined length of time, according to Shane Steichen yesterday. So he said that Richardson missed all 3 offseason practices this week and will be held out of next week's 3-day mandatory minicamp. Was non-committal about whether or not Richardson will even be ready for the start of training camp. So he suffered an aggravation of his AC joint, which Richardson sprained 5 weeks into his rookie season. That injury required season-ending surgery. Steichen says this one won't, but he needs rest, saying not going to put a timetable for training camp on it, but when he does come back, we'll ease him into throwing, and then we will go from there. At this point, Rhett, I'll be very surprised if Daniel Jones is not the week 1 starting quarterback of the Indianapolis Colts, right?
I think, but if you talk to Colts fans and just kind of people that have been following this storyline, I think they were thinking what you just spoke about Daniel Jones being week 1 starter. I think they were thinking that before this ever popped up, if we're being honest. Because, I mean, look, I talked in the last segment. Go get your Zone podcast, by the way.
Yep.
Like, rate, subscribe.
Love it.
Find it. About this deal of trying to find the secret sauce of quarterback success as it relates from college and starts at programs to show that translation at the pro level. And about 39.5 starts is some things I'd looked at that Daniel Jeremiah and Bucky Brooks had studied. Anthony Richardson had 13 starts in college. Now, he played in 24 games, but he had 13 starts. And anybody that's that far under the 39.5 game threshold, and again, Bucky and Daniel Jeremiah looked at basically the last 25 plus years.
Yep.
Like they did a sample that included Russell Wilson, Phillip Rivers, Peyton Manning, Eli Manning,
Sure.
all of those kinds of things. And when you think about it that way, you think about, look at Bo Nix. Now, Bo Nix went to the perfect spot. Sean Payton is there.
100%.
And you're like, hey, Sean Payton's like, here's what you're going to run, and then we're going to take the reins off a little bit. But the guy had, 60 starts, I think, in college?
I believe
62 or
61 was the total number. Yeah,
right.
Crazy.
And so, again, here's Cam Ward. What do you have, 56, 57 starts in college?
Yep.
Russell Wilson between NC State and Wisconsin, like it's way up there. Peyton Manning, same thing. And so he was already looked at with some scrutiny because he was thrown into the fire. I mean, he was a top 5 pick. But God, I go back to that Week 5 game in Indianapolis, and I think Harold Landry broke more than just his AC joint. Like,
Seriously,
you remember the whole deal about him? What was it? There was some operational thing that he had a flub on, where he was. I don't remember what it was.
I don't either.
It was like he didn't get back into the huddle quick enough. I don't know.
He took himself out of a drive. Also,
yes,
he basically sat himself of like, hey, I'm tired.
That's what it was,
right.
And he didn't kind of get the unwritten rules of whoa.
Like, yeah, you can't really do that at QB.
Yeah, you. and listen, with what he did in college in the sample size, I mean, I get why he was picked.
He's got as much arm talent as anybody in the
league.
And
he is a huge human being.
Massive. Right.
Like, he is built in the neighborhood of like a Cam Newton.
100%.
And can move.
Right.
But this sounds like something that is big problematic. Like, there are people in Indianapolis already saying he may be done.
Yeah.
The Colts may be done with him.
He's made 37 starts since high school. Like, including the NFL, including college, including high school. 37 starts in his footballing life since high school. I mean, there are quarterbacks starting their college careers who have already made 37 starts.
I'm going to tell you something else that is the truth about Anthony Richardson's future with the Indianapolis Colts. It does not help him at all that Jim Irsay is not on this earth anymore. He just passed away, and that was probably one of his biggest advocates.
I agree.
And I think Carly Gordon Irsay, one of Jim's daughters, is going to be the one that kind of leads the charge of the family with the ownership part of this, if I read that correctly after his passing just a few days ago. That does not bode well for Anthony Richardson.
No, not at all.
Because this is a now league, and this is, how many teams you see keep you were talking about drafting at a tackle when you have a tackle.
Yeah, exactly.
How many teams you see, it's time to draft another quarterback.
Right.
We got a quarterback, but we want to, and Indianapolis has really been looking for the answer ever since Andrew Luck suddenly retired.
They have. So fascinating to see. We'll talk more about what that means for Daniel Jones, who is now next up for Indy later on in the show. But certainly very interesting, to say the least, the next step for Indy at the quarterback position, with a good quarterback head coach, mind you, in Shane Steichen, who will try to push the right buttons.
And by the way, if Anthony Richardson is out for significant time and it's Daniel Jones, if Daniel Jones, if he gets dinged up, and he's been dinged up in his career,
right?
It's Riley Leonard, the rookie from Notre Dame.
Wow.
Think about that.
I saw somebody even said during the draft, it's actually funny, if you combined Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones, you end up with Riley Leonard. I mean, honestly, Riley Leonard ran a lot of QB power.
They're not wrong. They're not wrong.
Got some Daniel Jones in him as well. I love it. 615-737-1045 here on Ramon and Will. Coming up, we begin hour 2 with the big headline of the morning. Aaron Rodgers, a Steeler at last. And there's one person who should be happier about this than anyone else in the world. We'll talk about that next. Hey, it's Will Bowling for my friends at Nolensville Road Auto Mart. Look, if you've been looking for cars, you see the words buy here, pay here. Maybe you're looking elsewhere. Maybe you don't want to start your search there. Well, I'm here to tell you where your search needs to begin and end. That's over at Nolensville Road Auto Mart. And they are different for a few simple reasons. First of all, they've been doing business in Nashville for 61 years. Like me, these guys are Nashville natives. They only sell clean title cars under $12,000. So if you're new to town and you need a place to trust, they understand the market. They'll take care of you. Maybe you need that first car for the new driver in your family. Don't want to break the budget, but you want something nice, something safe, something affordable. Nolensville Road Auto Mart is where you need to go. The Google reviews are excellent. One location on Nolensville Road, close to Thompson Lane. They're going to get you in and out in an hour or less as well. Not going to take the whole day. 615-242-1279 is the number. They're the oldest buy here, pay here in Nashville. They'll work with your own financing if you got it. Flexibility, transparency, and honesty is why I recommend Nolensville Road Auto Mart. Call them at 615-242-1279.
.701, Good Friday morning from the 104.5 The Zone studios. I'm Justin Hawkins. In NFL news yesterday, the Aaron Rodgers saga is officially over as he is headed to Steel City and intends to sign a one-year deal with the Pittsburgh Steelers, per multiple reports. The 41-year-old four-time MVP let the Steelers know he intends to fly to Pittsburgh today and sign before next week's mandatory minicamp. It'll be Rodgers' 21st NFL season this year, and he will kick it off in New York against the Jets in Week 1 and also face the Packers in Week 8, his first time ever playing Green Bay. In other NFL news, Indianapolis Colts quarterback Anthony Richardson is sidelined with a shoulder injury and will miss minicamp next week, per head coach Shane Steichen. The shoulder injury is reported to be lingering from the 2023 injury he faced against the Titans, in which caused him to miss the remainder of the season with shoulder surgery. To the NBA Finals, where it got off to a thrilling start last night, the Indiana Pacers stunned the Oklahoma City Thunder 111-110 and take a 1-0 series lead thanks to Tyrese Halliburton's clutch jumper. With 0.3 of a second remaining in the game, the Pacers never led in the game until that jumper. OKC's Shai Gilgeous-Alexander had a game-high 38 points, but it proved not enough. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, you've got to go to USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Ramon and Will, 104.5 The Zone, kicking off your Friday in beautiful Music City, USA. We are brewed by Scooter's Coffee. Visit a locally owned location near you in Rivergate, Smyrna, Brentwood, White House, or Mount Juliet. Amazing people, amazing drinks, amazingly fast. In for Ramon Foster this morning, joined by the executive producer of Titans Radio, Rhett Bryan. I'm Will Bowling. Justin Hawkins, our producer, 615-737-1045, the number. Coming up in 15 minutes, VolQuest's Brent Hubbs for his weekly visit, talking Vols. Chris Burke of ESPN at 8:20. He'll be on the call for Tennessee and Arkansas this weekend alongside Tom Hart and Kyle Peterson, plus Ron Slay in hour 4. Rhett, that is a loaded lineup of Tennessee legends, I dare say.
I tell you what it is. It's Friday and we're acting like
that is right.
That's what that is.
That is absolutely
this is good.
Right. I love it. Good stuff. Aaron Rodgers is finally a Steeler. Our long national nightmare is finally over.
Everybody take a shot of ayahuasca, right?
42-year-old for the 2025 season, threw 3,897 yards, 29 touchdowns, 11 picks last year. His first full year with the Jets, of course, after tearing his Achilles in week 1 of the 2023 season. No one should be happier about this, Rhett, than DK Metcalf, who walks into Pittsburgh, a team always wanting to contend as long as Mike Tomlin is there, a team that's whose floor is clearly 9-8 because they've never had a losing record under Mike Tomlin. And you got to imagine DK Metcalf's a pretty happy man this morning.
I'd say he's thrilled, especially, I mean, look, Mason Rudolph and Will Howard, the rookie from Ohio State, is who's been on the roster through this part since he was traded there. And this is a guy that all he's ever played with is Russell Wilson and Geno Smith. But with those two guys, going back looking at his numbers, you realize he has 14.4 yards a catch in his career average. 48 touchdowns already. 91 X plays of 20 yards or longer. 20 of 40 yards or longer. And like I said, 992 last year, 967 in 21, 900 in 2019. So it's not like he's had like a super off year. Like he's very close when you add just a few digits to those numbers of having 6 straight 1,000-yard receiving seasons. So he's clearly the weapon.
Right.
But what does he have to go with all of it? I mean, obviously he's going to be the target. But what else does the Steelers roster currently made up of for the other weapons as it pertains to Aaron Rodgers, who will be wearing number 12 in the black and gold now? And you think about, Donald Parham, who they had acquired in the offseason. I think he had a non-contact injury in practice the other day, tore his ACL, I believe it was. Achilles, okay.
Yep, out for the season.
But they have Robert Woods at wide receiver, Roman Wilson, second-year man from Michigan, who, like you said yesterday, didn't have a whole lot of time on the field. Keyshawn Williams from Indiana, Rock Taylor, undrafted rookie from Memphis, Ben Skoranek, who has been around for a while. He's a fifth-year guy. Scotty Miller, same thing. Lance McCutcheon, I had forgotten about Lance McCutcheon.
Yeah, me too.
And I had also forgot that they had a rookie from Arizona named Montana Lamonius Craig.
Yes, that's right.
I had forgotten about him. But Brandon Johnson, and then obviously Calvin Austin from Memphis, who's in year number 4. And then we mentioned before Pat Freiermuth, and then J.J. Galbraith as another tight end, and then the giant tight end from Georgia, Darnell Washington.
Right.
So there's some of the weaponry in this, and then we didn't even get into the running backs, but that's going to be a healthy dose of Jaylen Warren and with some Trey Sermon probably mixed in, but Caleb Johnson,
who the Titans
rookie
liked,
from
reportedly.
Iowa. I think he was a top 20 visit, wasn't he? A top 30,
top 30 visit. Yep. So schedule-wise in the AFC North this season, the AFC North plays the AFC East, which sets up the Aaron Rodgers Bowl on Sunday, September the 7th on CBS between the Steelers and Jets. Week 1, MetLife Stadium. Aaron Rodgers returns to New Jersey. That's right. They also play the NFC North in the AFC North this season. So you will also get Aaron Rodgers going back to, well, not going back to, but playing Green Bay. That game in primetime, Sunday Night Football in Week 8 on Sunday, October the 26th, Steelers and Packers. Pittsburgh has an early bye week in Week 5 this season, but they get, again, NFC North and AFC East. NFC North is a difficult challenge for that division. There's going to be some big-time games between the two sides of the North, the AFC and NFC side this season. To me, those two divisions playing each other is going to make it harder for each of them to get three teams back in the postseason again. Because that's what happens commonly in both those divisions. When you look at, Cincinnati, who obviously was very down last year, Cleveland, who was awful. But Cleveland, it feels like every other year is kind of frisky. Like, depending on what their quarterback situation is, like, I still think very highly of Kevin Stefanski as a head coach. And what Andrew Berry
coach of the year once or twice
2 years
already?
Ago. Yeah.
Right.
And getting them to the playoffs with Joe Flacco at quarterback. So it's very interesting to see how that division shakes out now with Lamar Jackson, obviously, in Baltimore. You have Rodgers. You have an angry Bengals team that feels like, once again, they wasted a prime year of Joe Burrow, but also they're scared of paying anyone and probably won't have Trey Hendrickson around anymore. And then you make of, the revolving door and carousel of quarterbacks in Cleveland that, if one of them can be halfway decent, like maybe they're dangerous again. Like it's one of the more fascinating divisions. I think it's the most interesting division in football this season when you look at the desperation level of a bunch of teams that are trying to win right now. And Mike Tomlin, to me, who is closer to the end of his tenure in Pittsburgh than he is to the beginning, certainly.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. And in fact, Coach T has been there how many years now? Like 18 years?
I think that's right.
And sometimes there are people that push for a change.
Yeah, 18 years.
Yeah. There's a whole lot riding on this, and I think that's why Aaron Rodgers, them courting him, has been what they feel like, for the very least part, is a bridge to getting to better stuff. And look, here's the other question. This is the biggest question I have about Aaron Rodgers, because my opinion of him, I think he's a miserable person. Like he has the worst body language. He looks like he would rather be a million other places than where he is playing National Football League football. And so he can be 42 years old and not about his skill set, because you ran his numbers from last year. It wasn't terrible. Like I think a lot of people sign up for nearly 4,000 yards, 28 touchdowns, 11 picks.
Absolutely.
How about, Cam Ward? I'd be glad for those numbers. That'd be great, right?
I'd sign up for that exact stat line this season.
Yeah. I mean,
100%.
But I think the bigger thing is, how much does he still love the game? That's the part that I question. Just based on looking at body language and mood. And, like, he's a different cat.
We know he loves himself. Does he love football?
That for sure. But I don't know how much he still loves the game.
Right. Took 40 sacks last season, right in the middle of the road in NFL offensive line play a year ago. That, to me, is my question. Is that Pittsburgh offensive line good enough to block for a statue? Because the improvisational technique of Rodgers, rolling out left and flicking it right, and his ability to throw on the run is gone. He doesn't move the way that he used to.
Father time.
Yeah, undefeated. Steelers 13th in pass block win rate last season, and their left tackle is here in Dan Moore, who had a career year last season. It wasn't perfect by any stretch of the imagination. That's a difficult division from a pass rush perspective. And I know Trey Hendrickson, his status is up in the air with Cincinnati, but Myles Garrett, Mason Graham now in Cleveland. Obviously, you've got Baltimore, well documented what they do up front. Cincinnati, we'll see what happens with Trey Hendrickson, but as bad as that defense has been, they've still been able to get after the quarterback a little bit. They're adding on to that edge rush room, and Shamar Stewart comes in, if he ever practices, the rookie out of Texas A&M. That, to me, is the big question. Can Aaron Rodgers just finish a full season behind an offensive line that is relying a lot on I mean, 4 out of the 5 offensive linemen for Pittsburgh were drafted in the last 3 years. The other one, Isaac Samalo, the left guard. So, going to be interesting. We'll see.
And here's the other part that goes to that defense is, Cam Hayward is in year 15.
Yeah, right.
Right. He has had a fantastic. Now, they drafted Derek Harmon, who I really like.
Yeah, he's a good fit
in the
there.
draft process from Oregon. But, I mean, Cam Hayward's one of one. I mean, he's a bigger defensive, answer or player. He is. I mean, he's the son of Craig Ironhead Hayward.
Yeah, right.
Who was.
You don't get the name Ironhead by being very soft.
Right. And he's just a bigger, he's had a hell of a career.
Right. Interesting. We will see. That is going to be a fascinating division to follow.
And did I mention Robert Woods? I may have skimmed over that.
No,
Robert Woods is there in that wide receiver group. But,
they've got a lot of wide receiver 4s. I mean, I'm not saying Robert Woods is probably more of a 3 at this point in his career, but they've got a lot of guys who have been 400 to 500-yard guys over the course of their entire careers.
And part of that is, DK Metcalf is WR1.
100%.
You know that.
No doubt.
And then, but you dealt away with what was reported, some problems with George Pickens.
You dealt away a wide receiver, too.
Right. So, and to your point, I don't know if you've got a 2 or a 3 right there.
I think they hope it's Ramon Wilson in a big way, that he steps up and after, 5 snaps last season, could be that guy.
There it is. Boy, these storylines leading into camps and all that. I mean, there's an interesting story or a dozen just about in any one of these NFL cities.
No doubt. 615-737-1045 coming up. Brent Hubbs of VolQuest with the latest out of Knoxville. Summer camp starting up for Tennessee football. We'll get the latest on the quarterback battle and how Joey Aguilar has gotten to know his teammates in a short amount of time. Plus, a preview of Tennessee and Arkansas in Fayetteville in the Super Regional. All that and more with our good friend Brent Hubbs of VolQuest after this. Ramon and Will on 104.5 The Zone, brewed by Scooters Coffee, locally owned near you in Rivergate, Smyrna, Brentwood, Whitehouse, or Mount Juliet. Amazing people, amazing drinks, amazingly fast. With Rhett Bryant sitting in for Ramon Foster this morning, I'm Will Bowling. Pleased to be joined Fridays at 7:20 here on the show by our very good friend, Brent Hubbs of VolQuest and On3. Brent, what's going on? Good morning.
Good morning. Hope you guys are doing well on a beautiful Friday morning. Certainly it is in East Tennessee. Big weekend, obviously, for Tony Vitello and the baseball team, and big weekend in recruiting with some official visitors, and big week for Tennessee football as everybody gets back in town and they get cranked up with all-season work and a critical 100 days or so for this football team before they get ready to play Syracuse.
I love it. The Tennessee beat and grind never stops, Brent. You have also been doing some recruiting on Twitter at Brent_Hubbs, recruiting Ramon Foster. You've got bales of hay here. You've got different pictures of the work that's going on. It has the 4-star here in Nashville. I don't want to make his head too big. I won't call him a 5-star. Has the 4-star Ramon Foster from Ripley, Tennessee. Like, how's the recruiting pitch going to get his help out there, Brent?
Well, he went to see the alligators in Florida, from what I understand.
Right.
So that tells you how much he was interested in working on the farm with me, as he decided to go play with alligators or something. I don't have any idea, but he claims he didn't get an invite or something, and whatever. I mean, we'll see. I mean, listen, when you're a veteran of the NFL like he is, and people throw rose petals at your feet when you start walking in the room and all those things, the chances of getting him working a hay wagon's probably not real high, but hey, we'll continue to challenge him because why not, right?
Well, we'll get his NIL agent on the line, Brent, for you.
I love how Brent threw in there too. He's like, claims he didn't get an invite. I'm like, yeah, he's saying what I'm hearing, and that is, once a player, always a player. That's where you're at.
I love it.
That's exactly right.
I love it. Well, Brent, with Tennessee football ramping practices up once again, it feels like every week, Brent, until Tennessee plays Syracuse, we're going to be starting with updates on quarterbacks and Joey Aguilar and Jake Berklinger and George McIntyre. What have kind of been the early returns and on the field, what people are kind of impressed with Joey Aguilar so far, Brent?
Well, I think, again, one of the more impressive things with him is he's just come in and gone to work. And he's not forced himself. He's not, been, I'm the guy. He understands he's got to go earn it. He's got to go earn people's respect. And so, I mean, I think he's tried to do that, and I think he's doing a good job with that. Just going to work in the film room, learning as much as he can. It changed this weekend when everybody got back in town. Now you're, getting throw-in sessions, and now we're going to see how competitive that room gets and how they handle everything, because, we've seen it where guys really work well together and everybody splits reps. And we've also seen it in times where one quarterback will lock another quarterback out of the room and won't let them in. There's a guy in the Hall of Fame that locked out a quarterback to help his stock and to help his opportunities. So we'll see. I mean, they're going to be competitive. I think how you handle it, how these guys go about it with their teammates is going to be interesting, and how the receivers go about it, because the receivers are all trying to figure out, who do I throw with? And the reality is right now you better be throwing with everybody, because this thing is not, Joey Aguilar is not the chosen one coming in. He is the guy who is taking a roster spot that has the most experience, but it's not like he's the guy that you anointed a huge salary for, that you're going to end up playing because of that. That's not how that room is right now. That room's pretty balanced. And I think it's going to be fun to watch what happens over the course of the next few weeks as those guys get to throw in and the returns sort of come back on all those guys. Joey has a live arm, got a quick release. I think there's a lot of things to like about where he's at. I think the biggest question is, how much does of the offense does he learn? How much carryover is there from App State? How much has he already picked up? How much can he continue to pick up here in the month of June?
Brent, you guys have written about this at VolQuest.com. With all the talk about David Sanders and his insertion into this lineup, Lance Hurd is looking to make a jump from year 1 to year 2 within this offense as well. You guys wrote about kind of the weight changes and adjustments that he has made this offseason. Just what are the expectations for him, and how has he gone about maybe reshaping his body and getting ready to hit the ground running more quickly this season than maybe he did at times last season?
Well, this is the old proverbial contract year. Now, in the NIL world, those aren't as big as they used to be. But this is a guy who's third year in college, going to be NFL draft eligible at the end of the year. So you can make a huge jump here, right? And, I think the one thing Lance has done is Lance has lost nearly 25 pounds. He's in better shape. He's working to be in better shape. I don't think people realized last year just how much time he missed in July and early August after he had the knee procedure, and how much that messed him up, how much that got him sort of out of shape and got him overweight. He played too heavy a year ago. It showed. He did not play well enough. I think he's motivated to play much better than he did last season, knows he needs to play better, and knows there's a huge opportunity in front of him if he can take a real leap. So I think he's putting in the work. You just need him to stay healthy. And, man, the knee injury really set him back last summer. It was a much bigger deal than any of us knew at the time that, we saw him in August with that heavy knee brace. I mean, he was limited the first couple of weeks of fall camp, not just in the month of July, and that really affected him as he was trying to get further and further into this offense.
Brent Hubbs with us here on Ramon and Will on 104.5 The Zone. Brent, you also touched on some weight changes and some things as it pertains to some guys on the defensive side of the ball. Give us an update there of what some guys' body shapes and sizes are changing.
Well, I know you love the draft stuff. I'm going to give you one that needs to be on your board to dive into. I think Jackson Moy is getting ready to really, really pop on the scene. I really do. I think he's a guy that, under the tutelage of Rodney Garner, is a guy who played a nice role last year, but is a mainstay on that defensive front. He's lost a good bit of body fat. He's been challenged by Rodney to be more explosive. He's been challenged by him to be a better leader, and it is showing up right now. That is the guy that they are really, really high on. Feels like he's going to take a real step. I think he's going to be a guy that a lot of people are talking about as the season progresses, as a guy who can push the pocket a little bit, going to play the run really well, and is going to be a good player. I think he's going to play vertical the way Rodney wants to. I think the biggest surprise out of that group right now is Ethan Utley, the freshman from Nashville. Ethan had battled some illness back in January that he dropped quite a bit of weight. He's put that weight back on. He's showing explosiveness. He's going to play inside. He's probably got enough bend that he could play some strong side defensive end, but he's going to outgrow that and be an inside guy. So he's going to play there. But, I think both he and Isaiah Campbell, both the freshmen, are going to be a part of a six-man rotation. And Rodney's committed to playing young guys. He mixes those young guys in with veterans. And so he will take and, he'll play Utley in there with Jackson Moy, or he'll play Campbell in there with Bryson Easton. He won't put those two freshmen in there together unless it's mop-up duty against somebody. But those guys are going to play. And I think both Utley and Campbell, particularly Utley, has probably exceeded everybody's expectations to this point.
Jackson Moy, duly noted. I'll put that in the early Coach Mack board.
Yes, I would. I think I really do. I mean, I think that I think he's going to be great with GMs. I think his tape is going to be really good. I think he's going to be a guy, not a first rounder, but I think he's going to be a guy that people will look at and go, okay, yeah, we get it. That's another one of those Tennessee defensive linemen. Much like people looked at Omar Norman Lott and was like, well, he didn't play a lot, but boy, when he played, he was really effective. We like him, and you saw where he went in the draft. Yeah,
to one of the places you'd want to go for sure. All right, I know we're going to talk about Super Regional baseball as it pertains to the Vols and the Arkansas Razorbacks here in a moment, but I do want to get you to expand a little bit on what gear the Vols are going to be wearing in the not-so-distant future between Nike or whether it's Adidas, and how that kind of shapes out.
Well, we'll see. I mean, both those two companies are interested in Tennessee. Obviously, Tennessee's been with Nike for a decade, so they have the last say. And what that means is, whenever Adidas makes a formal pitch, Nike has 15 days to respond and counter if they want to, or match, or whatever the case may be. We'll see how much they want to do that, or how much they're just, we're not going to get into that kind of bidding war type deal. And we'll see how much money Adidas really throws out there. We've heard that Adidas is going big money-wise, but, I haven't seen anything on paper to tell me how big that is. But what we know in this day and age of college athletics is every dollar counts more than it's ever counted. It's why the league's going to 9 games. They can all talk about playoff formats all they want to and everything. You just can't walk away from TV paying you another $80 to $100 million to play another conference game. Everybody needs money. The arms race now is not for facilities. The arms race now is for cash. Who can have the most cash, because that's what's going to win. And that's what's going to help you have roster build in all sports, roster continuity, retention, all those things. Every dollar counts right now with where we are. And who knows if the House settlement ever gets done and all those things. And until it does, there's no parameters coming really. And so you got to have every amount of money you can have. And I think that's why a lot of people think Adidas is a very, very real possibility if they're going to pony up a significant amount more money than what Nike's willing to do.
Well, and contractually, it makes sense, since Nike's had that for the last decade, that they would have the first right of refusal. That's very interesting.
Yeah, so it's one of those deals. It's the contract was written that they had exclusive negotiating rights up until the end of March. And so that for the last, from mid-December or 1st December last year until March was an exclusive negotiation for a redo, a re-up, if you will, with Nike. And that window closed at the end of March. And Adidas made it very clear very early on, once that window closed, that they were highly interested and wanted to talk to them, and were talking money, and Tennessee started talking with both companies. And at the end, based on the contract, Nike gets a 15-day window on the back end after there's a formal offer from Adidas. Nike gets 15 days to mull that offer over, look at what Adidas is offering, and decide if they want to counter it or if they want to match it or what they want to do. Or they can come back 24 hours after they see that and go, you know what, that's not in our ballpark. We're not interested in that, and walk away. So I think it's coming probably early July. It could come a little earlier than that, but I think a final decision on this is probably going to be the early part of July, if I were guessing right now.
So, Brent, a big recruiting visit weekend for Tennessee football this weekend as well. The local product, Joel Wyatt, who we've talked a lot about, expected to be on campus. I love Luke Thompson and his story. Another guy expected to be around. One of the fastest players in the mid-state for Franklin High School, who had a great season this past season. They're in a really difficult division in Williamson County. And then Darius Gray, Brent, who I'm fascinated by, kind of that big, I guess, lineman prospect that Tennessee finds itself in a battle with this season. I want to start with Gray, Brent, and just where Tennessee is in that battle, because some big, heavy hitters vying for his services and a major battle for Tennessee for a big-time prospect up front.
Yeah, I mean, what's interesting with him is he's hard to get a feel for, because he's kind of liked sort of where he's visited last, right? This school's had a momentum coming out of an unofficial visit, or this school has a momentum, but it's getting decision time now, and the official visits will be the factor for him. He's going to take 3 here over the next 3 weeks, and then make a decision from there. I think Tennessee has some ground to make up. It's a big weekend with him to try to get there, but if anybody says they've got a feel for what his recruitment's going to look like over the course of the next 3 weeks, then they should go to Vegas and lay some money down on something somewhere, because they're going to win big. Because I think he's a big unknown, big body, really good player, highly sought after. But it's felt like he's kind of all over the map at this point, and I think he's going to remain that way through the month before he makes a final decision.
So, Brent, moving forward into the Super Regional, we've got Chris Burke coming up in the next hour to talk more about this, but so many storylines and so much time we could spend just breaking down the different dynamics of Tony Vitello versus Dave Van Horn of Tennessee, and kind of what has become a big rival on the baseball front in Arkansas. What is the X factor in this series, in your opinion? Where is this thing won or lost this weekend for the Vols?
Well, I think obviously Tennessee's got to throw it well. They've got to pitch well. I think the X factor when I look at this is Tennessee's got to play clean behind their pitchers. This isn't an explosive Arkansas offense. You can't give them extra outs. and Tennessee's not been a great fielding team. That you just can't make that bad throw at second. And it's not about letting a runner go first to third or something like that. You just can't give them extra outs. When you get an out, you got to get an out. So I think the X factor for me is how cleanly does Tennessee play behind their pitchers. We know Dole's got to throw it well. We know Phillips has to throw it well. We know after that it's we'll see, right? But you can't be in a situation where you got a 2-run lead in the sixth, and all of a sudden you're down 2 runs because you threw it into the dugout basically, or you threw it and missed an easy play. You've got to make the routine play if you're Tennessee. I think that's an X factor when you look at how much Arkansas can score and how well they score. They averaged, I think, 8 runs against Tennessee in the series that they played a few weeks ago. So they're going to score. You can't give them any extra opportunities to score.
Brent, when you look at the transfer portal again in another sport that happens during the postseason, because that just makes so much sense. Tennessee hosted Virginia transfer Henry Ford on campus this past week. I know On3's got him as the number 1 player in the transfer portal, leaving Virginia, a 3-time freshman All-American back in 2024. How strong are Tennessee's chances of landing a guy like this, and how active do you see Tennessee being in the transfer portal this summer for Tony Vitello?
Well, I think they're going to be active, and you've seen it. I mean, they're already doing work with pitchers. They've got to retool some things in their pitching staff, and I think Tony has gotten comfortable with the transfer portal. I think the transfer portal can be even more, I guess, I don't know if easier is the right word, but the transition can be even better next year because Tennessee's bringing a core group of young guys back that are going to be the nucleus of that team. This team didn't really have that. You played a lot of freshmen, and you played a lot of transfers. And so you had Hunter Ensley, and that was kind of your core veteran guy. Well, now you look at some of these freshmen that have played this year that will be coming back next year. There's a good number of those guys that are going to be kind of your core, which will help with some of that transition. But, Tennessee's always going to look for pitching in the portal. They're always going to look for a big stick. NIL will be a factor with some of these transfers as well. We talk about football, Will, and about how screwy the transfer portal is for football. And it's because there's the 2 portal windows. I mean, college baseball doesn't get enough talk for how jacked up the portal window is for them right now. Right. Think about it. I mean, you're playing for a chance to go to Omaha. You're hosting visitors. Okay, you say, well, basketball does that at the end of the season. But the X factor for baseball is you don't know what the draft's going to give you.
Right.
So, how many do you need in the portal?
Right.
Well, we think we need 2. Well, what if you lose 2 to the draft? Well, now I need 4. But I didn't know that at the time. Yeah. Nothing in the calendar makes sense. I mean, it just the whole portal windows for seemingly every sport seems off. And I don't know academically how you can fix it or what you do to go about fixing it. But, boy, it seems to me like baseball would want it after their draft to know what their class looks like. Okay, we're getting that pitcher. Oh, no. He got drafted in the 4th round, and they've overpaid in the slot for him, and we're not going to get him after he told us there was no way he would go, but there's too much money for him to pass up. We've got to go replace him. Well, you want to go replace him with an experienced guy from the portal, but those guys are all going to be gobbled up. So it's a jacked up deal for the portal, and then right now what baseball's dealing with is what basketball's dealing with, and to a degree what football's dealing with. They don't have any idea how many scholarships they have.
Right.
I mean, are we going to be a 40 scholarship team? Are we back to partials? Hey, I don't know. The judge says, hey, I'm going to delay the House settlement till June 27th. That's supposed to go in effect on July 1st. It all makes sense, right, Will?
It makes so much sense.
It's just common sense. There's just so much common sense prevailing through the world of college athletics right now that, I mean, it's the most level-headed thing in America is college sports. We can't even decide if you're going to do a 2-portal window, a 1-portal window in football. Are you going to do it in January or are you going to do it in May? I don't know. When are you going to decide that? I mean, season starts in 95 days. We got plenty of time. We'll deal with it. We'll let you know by December 1.
You make a great point.
We'll do the same thing with the playoffs. We'll let you know what the 26 playoff looks like 6 months before you start playing for it. Makes sense.
I love it. You make a great point, though. Baseball probably gets the shortest end of the stick of anybody. You're totally right. And it's going to be harder and harder to just sustain success, it feels like. I mean, that's the thing, Brent, with what Tony Vitello's done with 5 straight super regionals. There's a reason why nobody else is really doing that right now.
It's dumb. What he's done is dumb.
Right.
I mean, it really is. I mean, they've been fortunate. They've hit on transfers. They've stayed healthy for the most part. But, yeah, I mean, it's amazing what he has accomplished at this point in time. And here's the thing about that sport. It's only getting more and more expensive.
You're right.
And what's happening, and it's great for the game. It's a challenge behind the scenes. But with NIL out there, do you want to ride a bus in low A ball or high A ball? Or do you want to travel on a charter with a nutritionist, a strength coach, and all your meals paid for every day as a college baseball player? Where do you groom and where do you develop more? Riding bus from little town to little town, or playing on the biggest stage in the college game? And, oh, by the way, you're making money doing that. You're making a lot more money doing that than you are riding a minor league bus.
100%.
They're all going to come to – I mean, unless you're going to get stupid money from Major League Baseball, they're all going to come to the college game right now because financially it makes more sense to do that. It's great for the game. It's a real challenge for coaches to manage the roster, and it's a real challenge for ADs to try to figure out, okay, how much money are we going to invest in a sport that's going to lose millions? But to win, we're going to have to invest at a high level, knowing we're never going to get our rate of return on that. But we want to win in that sport because in this league, this sport's a really big deal. And we just put $200 million, $150 million into a baseball stadium, and we're paying the head coach over $3 million. Why? I'm not going to shortchange his roster. That makes no sense. You know, why are we going to go bargain basement there? So it's a real challenge to manage it behind the scenes. But again, for the fans, the product's never been better for college baseball.
Should be quite a scene at Fayetteville this weekend for Tennessee and Arkansas. Brent Hubbs of VolQuest joins us Fridays to make sense of a college sports world that doesn't really make sense here on the show. Brent, always a pleasure. Enjoy your weekend. Thank you.
I'm going back to the bean patch where it makes sense.
There you go.
But Ramon will not be there. I can promise.
That's right. Thank you, Brent.
All right, see you guys.
All right, Brent Hubbs with us, brought to you by
One of a kind,
Federal
brother.
Credit Union, your financial partner for every stage of life, the best of the best. I love it. Coming up, Pro Football Focus gives an X factor on the Titans roster this season. One player's the X factor. I couldn't agree more with the guy they've picked. We'll talk about that next.
We love being part of the moments that matter, which is why we're announcing employee pricing for everyone. You pay what we pay. Employee pricing at Two Rivers Ford. Locally owned, American made.
We interrupt your normal Friday morning programming with an urgent news bulletin from Murfreesboro, Tennessee. This is Ramon and Will on 104.5 The Zone. We are fueled by Scooters Coffee. Visit a locally owned location near you in Rivergate, Smyrna, Brentwood, White House, or Mount Juliet. Amazing people, amazing drinks, amazingly fast. Alongside Rhett, Brian, I'm Will Bowling. In the town of Murfreesboro this morning, Ed the Zebra has been found. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, it is official. An urgent news bulletin here in Middle Tennessee.
Breaking news.
Ed the Zebra, who I believe has made it probably to all of the Middle Tennessee Scooters locations by now in Rivergate, Smyrna, Brentwood, White House, or Mount Juliet. He has been found per the News Channel 5 Chopper, our very good friend Leland Statham. Vol for life, Leland Statham, tweeting out a picture. There he is, folks, in all his glory. Leland saying, "We have found the zebra. Sky 5 has it in view now in Rutherford County." Rhett, Brian, all it took was Aaron Rodgers to sign finally, and Ed the Zebra decided to come.
Well, first of all, he's been elusive because he's been fueled and powered by Scooters Coffee.
You're so right.
Like he is, I mean, that shot of him the other day just running his rear end off, like, yeah, that's Scooters. That's what that is. So is his name Ed?
Yes,
Seriously?
His name is Ed the Zebra.
Okay, sorry, I haven't kept up with that part of it. Only I've just seen him kind of locally go viral.
Yes.
All the stuff on Facebook and social media of him being at prominent
I saw somebody
prominent businesses. He's visited here and he's done.
Somebody with AI put him in an MTSU football uniform.
Oakland High School had him on the field at the football field there. Like, everybody wants to be a Patriot.
I love it. I absolutely love it.
Now, I will say yesterday on 3HL, Dawn did say that she knows the owners of the zebra.
Oh, my gosh.
She knows it's a friend of a friend kind of thing. It's a friend's brother-in-law or something like that. They said the name is Zeke. So maybe
Zeke?
Ed is not the actual name.
What? Well, I feel like I've been hoodwinked. I've been led astray.
Well, that's okay.
Run amok.
Jayhawks bringing some good institutional knowledge there
I'll
from
let my
3HL.
fiance know on News 2.
Well, maybe his name is Ed and his nickname is Zeke.
Sure. Zeke the Zebra. The Zeke-bra, one might say. Okay.
Here's the thing about
make myself laugh.
First of all, I didn't know legally you could have an exotic pet of that size and nature.
Right.
They're not cheap. I mean, $5 to $15,000, I think, is the ticket price for that. But here's the thing that people don't realize: zebras are, in animated things like Madagascar and all that.
So good.
These lovable creatures. They're mean.
Yes,
they are really mean.
They can kick a lion's skull open with their hooves. I guess I don't know
to get away from said predator.
Yeah,
and the other part, they will bite you as look at you. And everybody likes it. I love llamas. Don't get around them; they'll spit on you. I'm telling you.
Oh, my goodness.
But
anyway,
it's so wild.
Our long national nightmare is over.
And the other part is being the monochromatic mammal that it is. Like, how does this thing get so elusive? He's black and white striped.
I know.
He sticks out like a sore thumb. We're not in the Serengeti. We're in Murfreesboro.
It's crazy. So there you
Christiana.
go. The Zeke or Ed, whatever his name is. Maybe he'll tell us in an interview once local news gets down there to talk to him. Yeah, the Zeke bro.
Wasn't there a horse named Ed that talked?
Yeah, Mr. Ed. It was a sitcom
that's right.
I guess late 50s, early 60s.
Madagascar was one of my favorite animated movies growing up. I had that on DVD, and I would take, when we would take car trips, I had a little portable DVD player I'd sit in the back seat with, and I would watch that. Racing Stripes is actually one of the other ones that I own, about a zebra who races, I think, in the Kentucky Derby. As like the zebra that goes up against all the horses and the thoroughbreds and stuff.
Madagascar that's awfully good.
King Julian, I'm a sacrifice, King Julian. I love it. The little chipmunk character. I forget what his name is. Is it like Mott or something? What's the chipmunk? Am I right? Is it Mott?
Yeah, I believe you're right.
Mott. Oh, so good. So good. Madagascar is in my Mount Rushmore.
Of course, Chris Rock
animated movies growing
the
up.
zebra.
And Ben Stiller is the lion. Who's Gloria the hippo?
Jada
again?
Pinkett Smith.
That's right.
Yeah. And
actually,
then,
it's Mort. Not Mort.
Mort. That's right. Wow. So that Chris Rock and
then David
Jada,
Schwimmer.
This was very pre-slap at the Oscars.
Yes.
Chris Rock and Jada working together back then.
Yes. Yes.
I'm surprised the lion didn't ask to keep Gloria's name out of his mouth. I love it. I love it. Well, because there's also, they make fun of the Knicks in that movie as well when they all get on the subway. Isn't it right? They're reading the newspaper and it's like Knicks lose again, and it's like all these angry people are on the subway, and then they see why. It's like, the Knicks lost again.
Well, and of course, King Julius the 13th always, he's like, the New York Giants will help us.
Yes,
the New York Freaks will help us.
That's right. Oh my gosh, Madagascar and The Incredibles were my top two growing up. Top two animated films that I loved the most.
An underrated animated film that was out in the same window of time was Over the Hedge.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Like that was Bruce Willis. Like there's some stars in that one. Yeah. Always great stories, but
it's always cool too. You see the behind the scenes videos of A-list Hollywood actors who have a blast doing that stuff, because it's probably not as much work as like the blocking and like the movement and all of like the facial expressions and like all the actual acting you have to do. Like it's probably fun
out of the norm of what they normally do. So it's fun.
Right. I love it. Anyway, in the F and Big chat, we're discussing Madagascar now, talking about how King Julian is a lemur.
Correct.
And then Mort is the chipmunk. Right? He's not a lemur. I don't know. We'll get our crack research team on it. 615-737-1045. All right, PFF has an X factor for the Titans this season. I think it is a great pick. We'll talk about that as we begin the second half of the show. Chris Burke coming up at 8:20. Lots still to come on a loaded Friday edition of Ramon and Will coming up.
7:58. We're early on this one. Good Friday morning from the 104.5 The Zone studios. I am Justin Hawkins. In NFL news yesterday, the Aaron Rodgers saga is officially over as he is headed to the Steel City and intends to sign a one-year deal with the Pittsburgh Steelers, per multiple reports. The 41-year-old four-time MVP let the Steelers know that he will intend to fly to Pittsburgh today, and then he'll sign before next week's mandatory minicamp. Tonight, Game 2 of the Stanley Cup Final. Edmonton Oilers hold a 1-0 lead over the Florida Panthers after a 4-3 overtime win in Game 1. Puck drop tonight at 7 p.m. on TNT in Edmonton, Alberta. Tennessee baseball, they're back on the diamond for a super regional matchup in Fayetteville against the Arkansas Razorbacks this weekend. Game 1 tomorrow, 4 p.m. Central Time. Game 2 is on Sunday at 2 p.m., and Game 3, if necessary, will be held on Monday. Pitchers for the Vols have yet to be announced, but stay tuned. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, you've got to go to USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This Can I hold it for 10 more seconds? It's 104.5 The Zone.
Ramon and Will on 104.5 The Zone, kicking off your Friday in Middle Tennessee. We are brewed by Scooters Coffee. Visit a locally owned location near you in Rivergate, Smyrna, Brentwood, White House, or Mount Juliet. Amazing people, amazing drinks, amazingly fast. Alongside Titans Radio executive producer Rhett Bryan, I'm Will Bowling, in for Ramon Foster today. Rhett is hanging out with us for a couple more hours here this morning. Justin Hawkins, our producer, 615-737-1045, the number. Coming up in 20 minutes, we'll be joined by former Tennessee Volunteer, longtime Major League Baseball veteran Chris Burke, who will be on the call for ESPN's coverage of Tennessee, Arkansas, and the Fayetteville Super Regional as the Vols head to Arkansas to take on the Razorbacks. Excited to get Chris on here in a few minutes, right?
Especially knowing this one's about to kick off.
Yeah.
And knowing the dynamics of, what it means for the Vols trying to get back to Rosenblatt Stadium, but what stands in the way? Because Tony Vitello, Grasshopper, meeting Sensei,
That's
and
right.
Van Horn, and their luck or fortunes in Fayetteville have been slim.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So
not one there in a long time.
Set up for quite the story in a 3-game series.
Going to be fun. Starting off tomorrow, of course, you'll hear all that throughout the weekend, courtesy of the Vol Network here on 104.5 The Zone. Maybe we can get an inkling on who will be pitching and when for Tennessee as well. At least we'll ask Chris how he would set it up, considering Liam Doyle went Monday for the Vols and is a quick turnaround to this weekend. Pro Football Focus, Rhett, has X factors for all 32 teams this upcoming season. In my opinion, they nailed it for the Titans. PFF saying that Dan Moore is the X factor for the Titans this season. The blurb underneath that pick saying the Titans made major waves by handing Dan Moore a 4-year, $82 million contract. He did have a career year in 2024, but still placed 42nd among tackles with a 67.2 PFF overall grade. Tennessee is hoping there is more improvement in him, considering he will be protecting number 1 pick Cam Ward's blind side. Fair pick to say that Dan Moore might be the X factor for this team this season?
I think it is spot on when you're not including Cam Ward as that X factor.
Right.
I think he would be, in fact, you and Ramon next week could probably come up with who are maybe the top 10 X factors.
Sure.
Because there's been so much turnover in this stuff with 9 draft picks and I think 19 free agents and then all the undrafteds. I think it's spot on because if that's working right and doing what he's supposed to be doing at left tackle and JC is thriving at right tackle, I think that's spot on.
So Dan Moore coming into all of this, a guy that Ramon has talked about has athletic ability, has traits that are not teachable, but not playing against Trey Hendrickson and the Ravens and Myles Garrett every year. You think there is some level of projectability with him. And going to the Bill Callahan School of Offensive Line certainly doesn't hurt.
Drill Callahan?
Exactly. The crazy thing for me with Dan Moore that excites me, Rhett, is comparing him and just how old he is to a lot of the rookies that are coming out of college football now. And namely, you think about Anthony Belton, the tackle out of NC State that we talked about a lot in the draft process. I believe was 24 years old as a senior at NC State moving forward into the NFL draft process. Dan Moore is 26. And Dan Moore now moving forward into his second contract is by no means a finished product at this point in his NFL career. Yes, he's already played those first 4 seasons in the NFL, and we know what he is as a pro so far. I feel like we give up too quickly. Not that there's a reason to give up on him. He's had a fine last couple of seasons, especially 2024, where he was solid, but we're so quick to give up on guys and they're still mid-20s, even though we are willing to start a new project with a guy out of the draft who might also be in their mid-20s.
Well, here's 2 things. One, to the Anthony Belton part of this. 2025 is one of the last draft classes of the COVID era,
right?
Where extra years of eligibility, et cetera, are in play there. So that's part of that with the age median you're talking about. The other thing, though, and I know Ramon said it here many times since Dan Moore was acquired by the Titans. I hear Ramon's voice in my head. He's 26. He's getting into the prime years of his career. And, some tackles and just positionally anyway, age-wise, guys have earlier success than others or whatever. He's been very solid.
Right.
But I can hear him telling us, but Rhett, he's going into year 5.
Yeah.
And 5 and 6 and 7. And he would relate it to his career in 5 and 6 and 7 and his teammates on that Steelers offensive line.
Totally.
But those are the prime years, especially positionally, where, talking off offensive line. I think it was right place, right time. And clearly, Mike Borgonzi, Chad Brinker, and the brass said, yeah, this is the target. And the other part of it is the obvious now we have the left tackle. Now we're going to move JC to what I think they believe is his natural strong position. And you get a 2-for-1 deal.
Right. And I think especially, too, when you look at the best way to protect Cam Ward immediately. Long term, yes, teams draft left tackles to be the foundation of their franchise for years to come. This is a rare situation in free agency where you can still find that guy. I mean, if Dan Moore works out with the Titans, you've got 5+ years at least where you feel like he could be your left tackle. I mean, Trent Williams is obviously the gold standard in terms of how long he's been playing and how well he's been playing.
Almost 37.
That guy's not slowing down yet.
And has added. I saw a picture of him at 49ers practice, and he's added more muscle and bulk.
Now, I'm not comparing Dan Moore to Trent Williams, but the point is that that is a position where you can continue playing at a high level into your 30s and into your mid-30s. If you take care of yourself, if you have the, off-field stuff that obviously goes in your favor. But it's an interesting part of this Titans process. And I feel like Dan Moore hasn't been talked about as much as of late. Like it was not a major scrum around him coming off the practice field. And there's so much hoopla and hype around the wide receiver battle and around Cam Ward. And rightfully so. There's major storylines there in the offense that it almost feels like Dan Moore's kind of slid under the radar a little bit. And to me, he's the guy that if he hits, could really make this a top half of the league offensive line, because you know what you're getting in Peter Skoronski. You hope that Lloyd Cushenberry, coming off of the Achilles injury, gets back to himself. Kevin Zeitler is another example of a guy into his mid-30s, still playing the best football of his career as a pass protector. And I think there's a lot of good vibes and feelings around J.C. Latham year 1 to year 2, learning some lessons about his weight, his size, and now playing his best position.
How to be a pro.
If Dan Moore is what the Titans think he can be and takes that next step, this offensive line is at least middle of the road in the NFL. And that is the goal for the season. Get back to average. Get back to middle of the road from what you were last season.
Let me, and I'm glad you brought that up because I'm going to piggyback off that with something that Coach Mack sent me from CBS Sports. Kyle Long sorts out 32 blocking units by tiers. And so he starts with the D tier, dangerously concerning.
Yeah.
And it's Houston.
Yes. Big time.
Cam Robinson, Titus Howard, Jarrett Patterson, Juice Scruggs, Blake Fisher. Jacksonville, he has in the dangerously concerning.
And they've spent a lot of money to try to change it, but
Walker
that's a new
Little,
group. Yeah.
Ezra Cleveland, Robert Hainsley, Patrick McCrory, Anton Harrison.
Mm-hmm.
Antoine Harrison, I should say.
Yeah.
The Dolphins he has in this category. The New York Giants, the
Old
Pittsburgh.
friend Aaron Brewer down in Miami.
He's got the Pittsburgh Steelers in that too.
Yeah.
Seattle Seahawks. And then it goes to the C tier, average. He has 11 teams in that, and the Titans are one of those.
I'm fine with that.
Mentioning Dan Moore, Skoronski, Lloyd Cushenberry, Kevin Zeitler, J.C. Latham. So he's got them at least in the average. And if you've got average based on the woes you've had in the last couple of years, I think you're talking about marked improvement there. That's noticeable.
I agree.
He has Indianapolis's offensive line in that same tier with Bernard Ryman, Quentin Nelson, and company. Above average, Ravens, Bears, Packers, Chiefs, Raiders, Rams, Jets, 49ers. A solid A tier, solid. He has 4 teams, the Lions, Chargers, Vikings, and Buccaneers in that, and 3 teams elite, Buffalo Bills, Denver Broncos, and Philadelphia Eagles.
Right. Yeah, Philly, of course.
But I thought that was interesting, kind of how he plotted that out, and I thought that piggyback perfect off of this PFF X factor that they've selected Dan Moore as. Yeah, there's some dominoes that have to fall correctly for this Titans team to make marked, massive improvement.
I agree.
I think if we're talking realistically, the goal this year, and they haven't basically said this in just straight out, but it's winning more than 3 games. That's where they're at.
Right.
And if you can have a couple of dominoes fall in the right spots, then maybe you catch fire and do way better than 3 wins.
Totally.
But we know the massive turnover, and we know that some of the needs depth-wise they still have. I think that's why, the optimism is much different after last year because, look, everybody got excited when they got Calvin Ridley and they did all these other things.
Totally.
But you have to spend the money.
Right.
That's part of the equation, and I think that's where you can get a little false sense of hope there. Everybody's got it in all 32 cities.
Right.
But yeah, this is one of the major things to watch as we go through minicamp, and obviously in a few weeks with training camp beginning at Ascension St. Thomas Sports Park, which I think a good chunk of that's going to be on the road with joint practices, knowing that
Sounds
2
like
of the 3 preseason games are on the road at Tampa and Atlanta.
It does make me feel better about that line too, Rhett. The experienced depth behind the first 5. Clearly a priority for this team now moving forward into the season. You had Sam Mustipher, who started some games, Oli Udoh, who's played, Blake Hance, who has played almost every position on the line, it feels like, most recently in Jacksonville. The Titans the past couple of seasons, I think clearly their moves tell you what mistakes it feels like they've made over the past couple of seasons. They've relied a lot on day 2 and 3 draft picks to step up and to kind of figure things out in real time. They are relying less on later draft picks this time around. They're relying more on veterans who have been around the block a little bit, which makes me feel a little bit better if someone was to go down in that front 5.
Well, and to your point, Jackson Slater, I'm very interested in.
Me too. Yeah.
And it's well documented how he had played inside and outside in spots at Sacramento State, I should say. But he's a 5th-round pick, and I think with what they have in front of him will allow him, hopefully, knock on wood, with injuries and being in the equation as a possibility, the chance to work and be solid backup. Because I think there's a good chance they see him as what Matt calls the center guard triangle.
Yeah.
Where he might be helping them at center in a pinch and at one of the guard spots in a pinch if need be. But you're right. And the tackle stuff behind J.C. Latham.
It's a big battle to watch.
And Dan Moore. I mean, Jalen Duncan's still trying to figure out his way. And Chandler Brewer is there, a 3rd-year guy from MTSU. And then John Ojukwu, who, great story, love the guy, smart guy.
Right.
And still trying to, and then you mentioned Oli Udoh, who has been around for a minute. So, yeah, and listen, I think we also go back to one of the, another X Factor story is what this looks like after final cuts, after the third preseason game, and then what it looks like going into and after week one, because you have that number one waiver wire position.
Totally.
Because I'm telling you, the brass, Mike Borgonzi and company, they feel like that is a chance to steal a draft pick. Maybe from this year's draft that isn't,
totally,
that they vetted and looked at, and it didn't work out because of a number situation somewhere else. And certainly a veteran who, somebody's in cap trouble, right? Or whatever, or just straight up a younger player just beats them out at a position.
Right.
That's going to be the fascinating thing when we get into that part of the year, right around Labor Day weekend, as to how they use that to their advantage.
And the ability, too, to we talk about this every year at training camp. The week 2 53-man roster is closer to your working 53 for the season because you have vested veterans whose salaries are completely guaranteed for the season if you put them on the week 1 active 53-man roster.
Whereas you're not on the hook for it in week 2 and beyond.
If you can push those guys through waivers, which, again, that's something the Titans will have the ability to pick from. There are a lot of veteran players who are vested, who have been in the league for, 5+ years in order to reach that status.
And so you're talking about the numbers in the game of roster movement within it and how you do that and use it to your advantage.
100%.
Because, I believe the first waiver wire proxy with you having that goes up through the third week before the third game.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So you have all of this time in these coming weeks and months up until game day of week 3.
And that, to me, too, we talk about Van Jefferson and his chances of making the roster, specifically at wide receiver. Like, that's a guy whose salary is fully guaranteed if he makes the initial 53-man roster. There are plenty of players that teams around this league will want to keep around, but will also want to save a little bit of guaranteed money by trying to push them through week 1 and then pick them up week 2. So interesting to follow. I think it's such an underrated part of that entire process because that's more than just couch change that teams can save at that point. That's guaranteed money and cash that allows you to have some walking around money, to so to speak, for the entire season.
And they've made it clear they're going to churn the you-know-what out of the back end of this roster
100%.
To try to, get you the best 53 you can get.
Coming up, ESPN's Chris Burke will join us. There is another Golden Spikes finalist in a Tennessee uniform named Liam Doyle who will pitch this weekend. When is he going to go? Chris will answer that for us as another former Golden Spikes Award finalist representing the University of Tennessee. Chris Burke joins us next. The real estate market in Nashville is chaos. You need somebody on your side that can help you understand it, who knows the local market. What's going on? It's Will Bowling. I want to tell you about my good friend Bernie Gallerani. Look, in this market, you need a local agent with years of experience and a proven track record. I'm going to tell you, that is Bernie Gallerani. He turns complicated issues into 5-star Google reviews. You meet this guy, and it is just evident from the get-go. Snap of a finger, he's going to work for you. He is going to get after it on the market, and he guarantees to sell your home in 30 days or less, or he'll buy it. Yeah, that's right. No risk to you. Bernie Gallerani will let you out of the contract at any time. He is the real estate agent who has the 30-day guarantee to sell your home, and if not, he will buy it from you. For Mary Claire, buying her first home was more than just a transaction. It was truly a special experience. From day one, the team at Bernie Gallerani Real Estate delivered, listening, guiding, communicating, supporting her every step of the way. When a recommended home she hadn't even considered turned out to be the one, they made sure the rest of the journey was smooth and stress-free. free. The Guaranteed Sale Program with Bernie Gallerani, it is the way to go. Understanding the local real estate market here in Middle Tennessee. 615-428-2644. That's his personal cell phone. You can give Bernie Gallerani a call, 615-428-2644. That's Bernie Gallerani. Call him, 615-428-2644. Ramon and Will on 104.5 The Zone is brewed by Scooters Coffee as we continue here in hour number 3 this morning alongside Rhett Bryan filling in for Ramon Foster today. I'm Will Bowling. Pleased to be joined by former Tennessee baseball star and ESPN college baseball analyst who will be on the call for Tennessee and Arkansas this weekend. Chris Burke, kind enough to join us here on a very busy weekend. Chris, what's going on, man? How are you?
Hey, I'm good. About to head to Fayetteville, so ready to get it going.
I love it. Well, I got to lead off with this, Chris. I was so locked in on squeeze play over the weekend, and you guys just absolutely crush it. It is so much fun watching like NFL red zone style college baseball coverage over an entire weekend. Like, do you know how many hours you were total on air last weekend? Because like it feels like you guys don't get a lot of breaks. You're watching a ton of baseball. Just how much fun was that over a wild regional weekend last weekend?
Well, yeah, it's the best way to do it for a lot of different reasons. But selfishly, for me as an analyst, I get to really get a feel for a lot of different teams and a lot of different players, and get a much better sense of the stories that are unfolding. You know, when you call a regional on site, as fun as it can be, you are very much in your own silo, and it's really hard to come up for air and really have a sense of anything else that's going on other than just looking at scores. So as far as like just being able to do my job, it's a great way to do it. But then, you know, it's so entertaining, and I love the people I work with. And so, yeah, it's just it's an awesome experience. The first 3 days we're usually on air around 13 hours or so a day. And then the last day we didn't get on air till 6, so only 6 the last day. So yeah, we don't really take breaks. So once in a while, you know, you got to use the restroom, get a cup of coffee, or you go grab a plate of food that they have down the hallway. But even when we eat, we try to stay in front of the TV because we don't want to miss much.
Absolutely right. It is such a great product. Chris Burke of ESPN with us. So, Chris, I know you'll be on the call. Tom Hart, Kyle Peterson this weekend in Fayetteville. Starting with this Tennessee team and what they did over the weekend and hanging on in that 7th game against Wake Forest. Just what impressed you the most about last weekend from the Tennessee perspective and the way they were able to piece that thing together?
You know, I think, first of all, you never know how these regional draws pan out, but clearly I think, you know, whether you want to call it name recognition or talent, you know, I would say the latter more than the former. But you know, Tennessee had a legit draw. I mean, Cincinnati obviously was a very competitive Big 12 team with the Big 12 Player of the Year, and Wake Forest is always one of the most talented rosters in college baseball. And so Tennessee had their hands full. And I thought they played at a really high level. I think the trend lines that have kind of popped up over the last few weeks continued to head in the right direction, with Tennessee's bullpen really performing at a high level and Tennessee getting meaningful contributions from different places in their order. And then their stars playing like stars. I mean, Fisher and Doyle obviously had huge weekends, and Keelan's playing at a high level. So, you know, I thought Tennessee did everything that I would. You know, I'm sure they wish they could have swept it and not played a Game 7. But I think the Tennessee coaching staff has to be very pleased with the way their team's playing right now, and they're going to need to play at a very high level to get through this weekend. That's for sure.
On the heels of that, Chris Burke, who will be on the call this weekend to the Super Regional Best 2 out of 3 in Fayetteville, Arkansas, Vols and Hogs. On the heels of what you just said right there, the storylines are plenty in this, but just to think about, and this is unfair, just no way I can correlate it, but Dave Van Hort is the sensei in this, Tony Vitello is the grasshopper, and that's really not fair to him because all the success he's had in the last 5 years at Tennessee. But knowing how their fortunes have not been great in Fayetteville in the last, certainly during his tenure against his former guy.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tall task. There's no doubt about it. There's not a whole lot of people that have had success in Fayetteville. So, I think everybody knows what you're up against. I think, interestingly, Arkansas's got some home postseason hiccups that they need to erase. So there's a little bit of that storyline there too. I think just in general, Baum-Walker is one of the great venues in all of sports, not just college baseball, but all of sports. It really is a spectacle, and I think they celebrate the sport as well as anybody celebrates any sport in any fan base. So I think it's going to be everything that's great about college baseball this weekend. And I'm not saying the prior history of Tennessee struggling in Fayetteville doesn't factor in, but I don't know. I think there's so many other factors at play this weekend that some of that takes a back seat to just the immense amount of talent on the field and the fact that both these programs are playing for a spot in the College World Series, which is what both these programs measure themselves by. So TV, we like to talk storylines and build stars and all these kinds of things. This one kind of writes itself. You don't have to overthink this one. There's a lot on the line between two immensely talented teams.
Chris Burke of ESPN, our guest this morning on Ramon and Will. So, Chris, like you, Liam Doyle, a Golden Spikes finalist now, wearing the University of Tennessee uniform. I think Tony Vitello may have lovingly called him a psychopath at one point of that Monday relief appearance. How do you set up the pitching if you're Tony Vitello, Chris? And how much does that Monday appearance for Liam Doyle change, if at all, the routine with Marcus Phillips and him, kind of one of those two going game one and the other one going game two?
Yeah, we'll see. I think we're supposed to get an answer tonight. I've answered this question a lot this week. I think you could make a case. They're both great pitchers. They've both had really good seasons. Marcus Phillips obviously won game one against Arkansas a few weeks ago when these two teams matched up. So there's plenty of reason to believe he could go out there and perform at a high level. So we'll see. I think you could make the case that it makes a lot of sense to give Doyle another day after a heavy workload. And I'm again, I feel like I've said this 10 times this week, but I'm a big fan of your best pitcher pitching second in the Supers, and to not have to really do anything to make that happen from a standpoint of change your natural order with no extenuating circumstances. There clearly are extenuating circumstances with the fact that Doyle pitched on Monday. I think it's I don't know. Obviously, again, I hear the argument of running your best dude out there and winning the first game. I totally get that. But I also think, again, circumstances being what they are, it's a nice scenario to have your best pitcher either pitching to keep your season alive or pitching to send you to Omaha. That being said, there is plenty of rest, and if they run Doyle out there first, that makes a ton of sense too. So I think Phillips will go. That's just my guess. That's not an endorsement. I just think that's my guess. But it sure does feel 50-50.
Chris, when you look at the rest of this Tennessee pitching staff, and I know you saw it in Hoover, Brandon Arvinson's emergence over these last couple of weeks, and him kind of maybe becoming the guy Tennessee hoped he could be all season, a guy with so much talent. How big of an X factor is he for Tennessee, and maybe in kind of the biggest difference in this Tennessee team now versus the one that went to Fayetteville really just a couple of weeks ago?
Well, yeah, this was his kind of coming out party. It wasn't quite as spectacular as his last two outings have been, but it was still pretty stinking good. And I think him along with A.J. Russell, and you got to feel like Tennessee's bullpen is in a much different place than it was a month ago or so. You got two swing and miss arms, two guys that can potentially come in and be dominant out of the bullpen, and then you add that to the mix of Loy and Snead and Franklin, and all of a sudden, a Tennessee bullpen that kind of wavered in the latter part of the conference play now all of a sudden looks like a strength, and that's no small development. That's a big deal this time of year because it's hard to ask these starting pitchers to get too deep into ball games against these incredibly old, mature, talented lineups. And so if you've got to go to the bullpen in the fifth, you need dudes that can give you length and guys that can post zeros. And it sure does appear that Tennessee has that. And of course, we know Arkansas has that. So that's why I think the bullpens will really be the X factor this weekend. It feels like the bullpen that pitches the best will probably win this series. That's just kind of my guess.
Chris, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask about the team here right down the road as well that was one of many SEC teams to fall in the opening round and the regional round. Just on the way out, from your perspective on Vanderbilt and Tim Corbin and just kind of where that program goes next, felt like it was all coming together at the right time, and Tim Corbin was able to say, well, not so fast, I'm not done yet. What do you make of the way Vanderbilt went out last weekend? Is it a big adjustment that needs to be made in that program? Is it chalked up to a bad weekend at a bad time? Kind of what was your initial reaction as the dust settles on Vanderbilt's season?
Well, I think, number one, they had an incredible season. And, I think until the finish, I would imagine one of the more fulfilling seasons that Corbs has had there with a team that 6 weeks ago was, teetering on being a host or, kind of where they fit in on the national scene, and then just played with such confidence and so many clutch hits and pulled off so many kind of magical wins. And next thing you know, you win the SEC tournament, you beat all those high-level teams down the stretch, and you're the overall number one seed. In a way, it felt just kind of like baseball to me that, a team that didn't have a ton of margin for error had a weekend where they just didn't hit, and that happened to that team. I always think when teams lose in the tournament and people tend to be overly critical, to me, I always say, okay, well, why did they lose? Did they lose in a way that we've seen them? Let's do something that's apples for apples. When Tennessee basketball finally lost in the NCAA tournament this year, was that a way that they've lost prior during the season? Yeah,
right.
They didn't shoot good, right? We all saw that before, and it happened in the NCAA tournament. When Vanderbilt baseball lost in the NCAA tournament, what happened? Did they go out there and get shellacked on the mound? No, they didn't score enough runs. And I just think it's unfair when people come at teams in a way that's they played in a way that we had grown accustomed to them playing. But really the only difference was they just didn't get a couple hits at the end. Now, the first game against Wright State, they did. They hit a 2-run homer, and they won that game. That's how they've been winning the whole stretch.
Right.
And so, to me, I wasn't shocked at how they played. I mean, certainly you would expect the number one seed to win their regional, but I also didn't feel like they went out there and laid some egg either. So I still think it was a great year for Vanderbilt baseball. I'm sure Corbs would like to have a few more bats in that lineup. I don't think that's a news flash, but I still think Corbs is one of the best guys in the business, and there's a lot to celebrate for the season Vanderbilt had.
No doubt about it. College baseball in this state, it is a blast, and that rivalry will certainly, of course, continue between the Vols and Commodores. Chris Burke, been our guest. ESPN's coverage of the Super Regionals this weekend. Chris, Kyle, Tom Hart, those guys absolutely crush it. Looking forward to watching and listening. Really appreciate the time and a busy weekend, Chris. Thanks so much.
My pleasure.
Awesome. Chris Burke with us here this morning talking some Tennessee, Arkansas baseball. It is going to be explosive this weekend in Fayetteville.
All eyes on the orange.
That's right.
And just thinking about the setup with all of this. Mm-hmm. I mean, you and I talked about it in prep yesterday or this week. You said Arkansas feels like it's their best opportunity to go to Omaha and win the thing. That's something that has eluded Dave Van Horn.
Right.
And, they've got a deep bench.
They've
and then, you heard Brent Hubbs talking earlier here on Ramon and Will about how explosive they are and, how many average runs. And it just sets up for a fantastic story. It may be one of the super regionals that everyone is watching, knowing what's at stake for each of those programs.
No doubt.
Recent success with Tony Vitello and continued success with Dave Van Horn, but not penultimate success that he's been looking for.
It is. It's fascinating, and I think for both of those teams, you look at that side of the bracket in the NCAA baseball tournament. So Tennessee, Arkansas, the winner of that game, or the winner of that series, will get the winner of the Baton Rouge Super Regional in the first round of Omaha. So the winner of LSU, West Virginia, I think a lot of people obviously expect that to be LSU, will get the winner of Tennessee, Arkansas, snap of a finger to begin the college baseball championship. The other four teams on that side of the bracket, this has been where all the upsets are. Duke, Murray State, UCLA, UTSA. The other teams on that side of the bracket. So you're going to get two of those teams, the winner of UCLA, UTSA, the winner of Duke, Murray State, which nobody saw coming. So there's opportunity on that side of the bracket to get deep in this thing. And I believe Tennessee, Arkansas, and LSU, in terms of the Vegas odds right now, are the three teams with the best odds to win the national championship at this point. And the other side of the bracket, much more challenging. You got Miami, Louisville, Oregon, Florida State, UNC, Arizona, Auburn, Coastal Carolina on the other side. So I'll tell you what, we had this conversation right the other day, and I gave this disclaimer to people because I think college baseball is growing in a way that is significant right now. If you are tired as a college sports fan of NIL, transfer portal, all of the things that are changing loyalties in college athletics, a lot of hired hands. Transfer portal obviously is still a big part of college baseball. This is, to me, more old school college sports in baseball. And the example I'll give again, on Monday when Liam Doyle pitched for Tennessee in the Game 7 against Wake Forest, that guy's a bona fide top 10 overall pick, top 20 overall pick, no questions asked. In an era where guys are opting out of games or guys are maybe giving it the old college try at the end of their careers to protect their draft interest, Liam Doyle's out here pleading with Tony Vitello, please let me throw Monday. I want to get my team to a super regional and win a national championship. Like, he doesn't need to do that. He did. You've got a lot of that happening still in college baseball where guys are willing to put their arms and bodies on the line, and it's old school college sports still.
They're making team decisions, not business decisions.
There's a lot of that, no doubt. And again, it's not perfect. There's still plenty of tampering, I'm sure, and plenty of the NIL and transfer portal stuff. But a lot of the big NIL rosters are out. And there's a lot more than just money you have to throw to put together a lineup and put together a baseball team. So it's been fun. I'm a baseball person. You know this. Everyone who listens to the show knows I just love the sport in general. But I'm glad that it is getting its shine. That last weekend was awesome. It was awesome.
We'll hope that this weekend will also be awesome.
That is right. No doubt about it. 615-737-1045 is our number. Some numbers on Anthony Richardson. We'll get back into one of the big stories of the AFC South over the last 24 hours. Bill Barnwell had a piece this week before the injury came out about Anthony Richardson about why Daniel Jones might be a pretty good fit in Shane Steichen's offense in Indy. And we'll run through that next. Ramon and Will on 104.5 The Zone is fueled by Scooters Coffee, locally owned near you in Rivergate, Smyrna, Brentwood, White House, or Mount Juliet. Amazing people, amazing drinks, amazingly fast. Still to come in hour 4. Ron Slay at 9:20. Plus, we're going to do some rankings with Rhett Bryan. The top 5 Titans plays, according to Rhett, not named the Music City Miracle. I'm excited about this.
And some honorable mentions,
I like
too.
it. I like it. That's coming up here at 9 o'clock in 15 minutes. Your phone calls. Exactly. Thanks, Ramon. How are you? 615-737-1045.
I'm sorry.
That was day 1 of Ramon Foster working on 104.5 The Zone. I remember listening to that live and being like,
musical.
who am I working with now? Oh, okay. Well, little did I know. How good the guy was. Anyway. Yeah, that's right. So Daniel Jones in Indy, Rhett Bryan, expected to be, I think, the starter week 1 at this point. Shane Steichen telling reporters yesterday that Anthony Richardson will not participate in next week's minicamp with a shoulder injury, saying he hopes the QB can return at some point during training camp. Bill Barnwell wrote about Daniel Jones this past week, using the words, he was miscast as a $40 million quarterback in New York, saying he is an accurate passer in rhythm and should be able to handle Shane Steichen's RPO calls. It's funny, you're getting a quarterback, Rhett, who, in Anthony Richardson, his targets are further downfield of anybody else in the NFL. And now you switch to Daniel Jones, whose targets are closer to the line of scrimmage and doesn't have a ton of arm strength. It is a complete 180 in terms of arm strength and skill set as a passer from Richardson to Jones for Shane Steichen.
Short to intermediate passing stuff has always kind of been Daniel Jones' thing. And Anthony Richardson, listen, that's the reason he's top 5 pick. He's got an arm. There's no question about that. He has an arm. It's whether he can stay on the field or not.
Right.
But yeah, and this is an interesting, I mean, I guarantee you this is all over Indianapolis radio and television this morning. And then you told me off air that Michael Pittman Jr.
left with practice early with an injury yesterday.
So,
although what's going on at
it's something's in the water or something. Again, Anthony Richardson, they drafted him clearly like a lot of draftees, not just by position or in positionally playing football or position on the draft board, on what they believe he could do, on the potential. And you can understand why. I mean, he's a big dude, big arm, can move around. And ever since week 5 of the 2023 season, he has not been quite the same with that AC joint surgery and everything when Harold Landry sacked him and took him out of that game and subsequently took him out of that season.
Sure.
And 13 starts in college. That was it. I think he played in 24, 25 games, but 13 starts.
Since high school, he's made 37 starts.
So 15 as a Colt.
Yep.
But 37 total since high school.
It's crazy.
That's not, when you think of it in the scheme of things, at 3 different levels.
Yeah. Right.
That's not a huge sample size.
No, not
especially when we were talking about earlier this morning. Go find your Zone podcast.
That's right.
It's there. But these guys that have been coming out, Bo Nix, around 60 games of experience in 2 or 3 different stops. And Bo Nix had early success last year.
Right.
Now, I mean that loosely based in he wasn't throwing for 400 yards every game and all, but they did go to the playoffs.
Right.
They did have a winning record.
Totally.
And he did have bigger numbers towards the end of the year when they started taking the bridles off of him a little bit. But yeah, if I'm a Colts fan, this is troubling.
It's interesting.
It's early, but it's troubling.
So the thing with Daniel Jones that interests me, and in Shane Steichen's RPO offense, that is rhythm, timing. It is quick throws that aren't really over the top of the defense as much as it is finding a gap, quick decision making. Am I running? Am I handing it off to Jonathan Taylor? Or am I tossing a slant to Josh Downs or to Michael Pittman Jr.? There are some weapons. Obviously, Will Freese is gone, the longtime interior lineman for Indianapolis. Some changes on that O-line. It is interesting to see how Daniel Jones could fit into that system because as an athlete, Daniel Jones is the epitome of sneaky athletic. He is like the stereotype of the, you look at him and he doesn't look like he's going to be as fast as he is. And he is actually a pretty good runner. They are going to use him differently, though, because he was more in a zone read kind of system in a lot of his runs in New York with Brian Daboll. This is more of an RPO adding a pass element to a lot of those reads. So I think, honestly, Daniel Jones is the better fit for that system and what Shane Steichen wants. And I know, half of this show, Ramon Foster, when the Titans were contemplating their quarterback decision this past offseason, Ramon has been on the Daniel Jones train from the start.
We've had many conversations about that off air.
100%.
About, hey, listen, talk about a guy that's still young in his prime, because I think Daniel Jones is, 26 years old, maybe 27?
I think you're right. Let me look that up.
And has played a lot of football and wouldn't have been a terrible choice. And then when he went to Indianapolis, I think a lot of people thought like we did of,
yeah,
if Anthony Richardson can't go or something isn't right, he's probably the guy. Now,
28 years old, Daniel Jones.
Okay. And here's the other part about more zone stuff and not, using wheels. He's had some injuries.
Yes.
I'm looking at it right now. So fractured clavicle in college, high ankle sprain early in the NFL, hamstring strain, and there's part of that stuff. Ankle sprain, thigh, concussion at 21, and that took him out for a minute. And then he had season-ending neck injury in 21. And then here's another ankle in 22, another neck injury in 23, and then obviously the ACL in November of 23 that took him out for the rest of the year. That was in week 9 of that season. So you see a lot of soft tissue and lower body injury stuff there, and I think that probably would lend you to go back towards more zone. Now, does that mean they don't have a designed run for him or some type of, to keep people on their heels? Sure. I don't think he's going to be doing it on the ready like you saw him doing in a Giants uniform.
Totally. To me, I think Daniel Jones right now is the better quarterback between the two. Like, I think in terms of performance level immediately.
And Giants fans would argue that.
Right, yeah, they would.
Because of some pick sixes in some bad areas.
They would, for sure.
Some decision-making in place. But certainly he has, at the very least, a bigger resume.
He does.
More experience.
And Anthony Richardson last year, 47.7% completion percentage, was the worst in NFL history, adjusting for era among passers with a minimum of 200 attempts.
And people forget, he was benched.
Yeah, right.
I mean, they had eight touchdowns to 12 picks.
Right.
I mean, he's been going through it.
He has.
And then you mentioned earlier today about, I couldn't remember what it was structurally or functionally that was an issue, but he took himself out of a game.
Yeah. On a long drive.
Just like a sub playing basketball. It's like, whoa. This is not where you play, 18 minutes and you get to sit for a minute.
Totally.
Like, you're the quarterback.
I think the Colts are better off with Daniel Jones. I really do. And it felt like this was trending that way. Some of the things that Shane Steichen and Chris Ballard had said of like, no, this is a competition. We need somebody to come push Anthony. But beyond that, like, they've not really hid a lot of their displeasure about the way Richardson's played. I think it may have even gone this direction anyway.
Well, and
to be honest with
as I mentioned earlier this morning, the untimely passing of owner Jim Irsay does not help his case and cause at all.
I agree.
Because Jim was a player's owner and championed many causes of many guys that have come through there. And that was probably his biggest advocate. And in this case, one of the most important advocates. Sure. It's a shame because Anthony shows he has the requisite skill set. He just has not been, for the most part, available.
Right. Totally agree. 615-737-1045 if you want to jump in on the discussion. Ron Slay coming up in a little over 20 minutes. And when we come back, Rhett Bryan ranks the top 5 Titans plays that aren't the Music City Musical. Coming up next.
9:01, good Friday morning from the 104.5 The Zone studios. I'm Justin Hawkins. In NFL news, the big headlines. Aaron Rodgers' saga is officially over as he is headed to the Steel City and intends to sign a one-year deal with the Pittsburgh Steelers, per multiple reports. The 41-year-old four-time MVP let the Steelers know that he intends today to fly to Pittsburgh and sign before next week's mandatory minicamp. Tonight, Game 2 of the Stanley Cup Final takes place. Edmonton Oilers hold a 1-0 lead over the Florida Panthers after a 4-3 overtime win in Game 1. Puck drop tonight at 7 p.m. on TNT in Edmonton, Alberta. Tennessee baseball is back on the diamond for a Super Regional matchup in Fayetteville, Arkansas, against the Arkansas Razorbacks. Game 1 is tomorrow, 4 p.m. Central Time. Game 2 is on Sunday at 2 p.m. And Game 3, if necessary, will be on Monday. You can, of course, hear Tennessee baseball this weekend, courtesy of Vol Network, right here on 104.5 The Zone. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, you've got to go to USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Friday morning on Ramon and Will, wrapping up the 20th hour of the week, the 4th hour of the morning, fueled by Scooters Coffee. As always, visit a locally owned location near you in Rivergate, Smyrna, Brentwood, Whitehouse, or Mount Juliet. Amazing people, amazing drinks, amazingly fast. Alongside Titans Radio executive producer Rhett Bryan, in for Ramon. I'm Will Bowling. Justin Hawkins, our producer. Ron Slay in 20 minutes. Rhett, I do have a tease for the people this morning.
A tease for the people.
Justin Hawkins has been in the salt mine, and we have been working away. The new sound and look of Ramon and Will debuts next week.
Make it an appointment.
Monday? Are we promising the people Monday? Is that okay?
We can do it Monday.
All right, Monday.
Don't
Monday
forget
morning.
you're at the golf tournament,
from
too.
the 104.5 The Zone Golf Classic at Nashville Golf and Athletic Club. We will be debuting new music.
It'll be what you're hearing.
New logo, which you can see on Twitter at Ramon and Will, where you should already be following the show and streaming the show. That's right. It'll be what you are seeing of the new graphics and sound of Ramon and Will. We're going, I'll say this, Rhett. You know the music we've chosen, the sound that we've gone with. We are going with a classic for our intro music. That's all I will say. All I will say. I'm not going to tell people what it is yet.
And it's a good vibe. Good
We're going
place.
with a classic.
Happy
and
place.
Actually, you know what? I will say it's been played as bump music this week.
It has.
That's all I will say. The only hint I'm giving about the new sound of Ramon and Will coming up on Monday. So looking forward to that. That's right. That's my favorite drop on the board right there. Was that the Carl Lewis?
That's Carl Lewis National Anthem.
That gets quoted like in my group of friends. Something bad happens. Uh-oh. Anyway. Yeah, exactly.
That's probably my favorite. What?
Yeah, I love it. All right, Rhett Bryan, we are...
That's yes.
What?
Justin,
Yeah.
What?
Because that's what, Stone Cold Steve Austin?
Yeah, maybe what I'll do is I'll replace him with me and what?
Pretty good. Pretty good. I like it. All right, so we've accomplished a lot this morning. We've had Brent Hubbs, we have had Chris Burke on the show. We found the zebra in Murfreesboro,
and the show will have no roof in about 18 minutes.
Exactly. Rhett, we had this idea this week. We want to do a segment of Rhett rankings, Rhett Kings, if you will, of
Rhett Kings, okay.
Of a top 5 from your time at Titans Radio. And I came up with this idea. We talked about it. Of the top 5 plays in Titans history, your top 5 favorite, other than the Music City Miracle. So I will give you the floor to take it away and guide us through the journey of best plays in Titans history, other than, as Ramon calls it, the Music City Musical.
And let's say this: it's opinion based, it's subjective. This is just roughly.
Okay.
A top 5 I could come up with off the top of my head of the 535 Titans games I've been a part of. So your top 5 may be different.
Sure.
Certainly people in the chat or calls, whatever. Miracle play that's the crown jewel.
It's one.
We know that.
Of course.
We know that.
For sure.
And this is not in any particular order, ascending, descending, whatever.
Perfect.
This is just some things I made notes on. I'll give you one. November 26, 2006, Vince Young's rookie year in Houston, Texas.
Oh, yeah.
A 39 touchdown run in overtime to walk off right out of done.
That was that is a
Division win.
core memory for me of watching that game and just Like him getting away from one guy, two guys, three guys, then all of a sudden just game.
Pulled the
over.
ball down, ran
Blouses.
right, and toodaloo.
That was so awesome. I like it.
You know Derrick Henry's 99-yard run.
Of course.
That's solidly
It's an easy one.
probably in the top 5.
Yep.
Just because of what it was.
Right.
And the fact that it was in a regular season game and not a playoff game, because it might be a close second or third behind the miracle if we're talking about huge implications. But this is, the beginning of Derrick Henry's career,
yes.
really and truly,
right.
after being on the roster for, a couple of years at this point. It's December the 6th of 18, and 4 stiff arms and 99 yards later, it's the franchise run. I mean, you have the longest run in franchise history, and Earl Campbell and Eddie George and Chris Johnson have preceded you.
That was a where were you moment as a Titans fan. Like, truly, I think everyone watching that game in this fan base knows exactly where they were. I was in the booth of a restaurant in Knoxville that doesn't exist anymore, Wild Wing Cafe in Turkey Creek.
Wild Wing Cafe? I remember those.
Watching, I think there's still one here somewhere.
Yeah, they're a franchise. They're a chain, yeah.
But the one in Knoxville isn't there anymore. And I remember the exact booth that I was sitting in with 2 of my best friends from college watching that. And oh my gosh, so much fun. I just wish I could have heard Mike Keith's call of it live versus Joe Buck's, respectfully. I love Joe Buck, but Henry, still Henry, 99 yards. I don't know. Anyway, Mike Keith's was fantastic of that call.
You wouldn't have a top 5 in my top 5 outside of Miracle without having Mac 9,
yes.
Steve McNair.
Mm-hmm.
And this was one of the plays that was just a part of that magical lead up to his 2003 MVP season. And this would have been December of, I believe, 2002.
Okay.
4th and 10. And McNair throws to the back of the end zone to Drew Bennett. And Drew Bennett with the to quiet the crowd. It was a dagger.
I love it.
It was, and I think that, if I'm not mistaken, that was December of 2002, because that was the mark where you're like, okay. And then 2003 comes.
Yeah.
And here we are. And that might have been 2003. They all kind of run together. I don't have the retention level of one Michael Keith.
Who does?
He is a freak of nature in that matter.
Right.
Here's another one. And this one, these are playoff moments.
Uh-huh.
Marcus Mariota's touchdown to himself in Kansas City.
Great one.
That's January 6th of 18.
And the comeback in Kansas City.
Because it fooled Mike. He was like, wait a minute. And then he saw a replay real quick and said, he did. It was batted back towards him.
So
he
fun.
Catches, yes.
Exactly.
And it's a touchdown. And this is a game that they trailed in.
Uh-huh.
And
Big time.
ended up winning that wild card game at Arrowhead Stadium.
That's so fun.
And another one, you wouldn't have a top 5 without Eddie George.
Right.
The 68-yard touchdown run in the divisional round of what was the Super Bowl run in Indianapolis in the old RCA Dome.
Nice.
And they had the old non-fancy digital jumbotrons. There was a big one in each end zone, and he was looking up to see who was trailing him as he goes bye-bye with one of the nails in the coffin with that. And then what happened when we got back home, this is pre-9/11, and on the Northwest Airlines charter, an airline that doesn't exist anymore, coming out of gate B3 at old BNA, and 10,000 people are there because they're jacked up. They're going to the AFC Championship game to take on Jacksonville. Honorable mentions, I think you got to go back to what cemented the division run, the division win, a long drought there, the Sam Sloman kick in Houston.
Great job, Sloman.
Mac, one of his great parting shots.
Absolutely. Doinked it in.
But just plays that stand out, honorable mention.
Yeah.
Still one of the best catches in Titans history in the 2012 season at Nissan Stadium against the Detroit Lions. Look it up, kids. Nate Washington,
I was going to say.
Makes a very, and I'll know you're a real football fan because it was an Alabama Tyrone pro throw.
Yes, exactly. Over Southern Miss.
Where he has his back to, he has turned to see the ball coming. He goes over the nameplate and behind the helmet of the defender who is like glue on him. Plucks it away from him, pivots, goes about another 15, 20 yards, and it's a TD in the south end zone.
I love it.
It was amazing.
That was a great one.
That is, I think that's one of the best catches in Titans history.
Definitely in Nissan Stadium history for sure, too, of like one of the best ever made there.
And look, everybody's going to have a varying opinion. You can talk about Derrick Henry's jump pass.
That was the next one I was going to bring up against Baltimore.
A play that's been around since the 1800s.
Right.
Or, hey, I'll tell you another one that should have been probably in my top 5. Logan Ryan's pick 6.
Yeah.
In the dynasty.
In the dynasty.
Of the Patriots and Gillette.
Yeah, for sure.
And really, Brett Kern deserves he and special teams deserve so much credit for nailing a 58-yard punt that downed it, and teams' hands go down and down it at the 1.
Right.
And then the next play, see you later.
I'll tell you another one for the Baltimore game is Jonnu Smith's 1 cheek equals 2 feet catch in the back of the end zone. At the beginning of that game, one hand goes up left pylon and gets his butt down in the purple paint before his second foot does, which counted and that was it for the touchdown. The other one that you've brought up to me before too, and it is a sore subject because of the play that happened right after it. The penultimate play of the Super Bowl, where Mac 9 gets away from a rush, gets away from one guy, gets away from 2, just twirls around and just delivers a seed to set up the last play of the Super Bowl, which obviously we know what happened. I know. It is one of the great forgotten plays in Super Bowl history because of
Rams defenders, 2 of them had him nearly to the turf of the Georgia Dome. I mean, Jersey is pulled. If it was a tearaway in the 70s, he would be gone. He would just have pads on.
Exactly.
But it was a 16, 18-yard play to Kevin Dyson, which set up, and then I think they took a timeout with 6 seconds left. And when you talk about other plays that stand out that did not go in the favor, the tackle by Mike Jones, that was 1 yard short, is one of the league top memorable plays 100%. Because of what it was to end a Super Bowl. But there are plenty. I mean, I talked to a couple buddies of mine about us discussing this, and they were talking about just plays that stand out as a sidebar. And, Justin Hunter's touchdown in the this would be the northeast corner end zone to beat the Chargers finally. Because they beat the Chargers in 21 years at that point or whatever it was.
Phillip Rivers early in his Chargers career.
Yeah. Yep.
That was a really fun. Justin Hunter was my favorite Vol on any of those teams, and I was so excited that he was on the Titans. We talked about Ramon. Talked this with Ramon so many times. He's like, Justin's the coolest guy in the world. It's just funny that I idolized him. You're welcome. But I remember that game vividly of him just mossing a guy in the back of the end zone. Justin, what you got? Honorable mentions.
Yeah, real quick before we go to break. So December 3rd, 2006, this one is pretty special to me. I think I was 11 years old, sitting in the stands way up in the upper bowl. Rob Baronis, 60-yard field goal to beat the Peyton Manning-led Indianapolis Colts.
That's a core memory for me.
It was their first win, I think, in 4 years over the Colts. So it was pretty special, and I can always remember leaving the stadium, and all the Colts fans were like, okay, you earned that one.
While Ray Charles's Hit the Road Jack is blaring from the stadium speakers. Nice. What a walk-off.
Nice. That one's a good one. And, heck, any of the plays in the comeback against the Giants.
Yeah, I also say that one too.
Remember a 21-point comeback.
I can vividly see Pac-Man Jones. That's what gets buried in that.
Right.
When you go back and look at that game book, he had a whale of a game. But the whiff by Matthias Kiwanuka on what would have been an imminent quarterback sack, and VY sprints to the right.
Man.
And it's another set of downs, down 21-0 to your point. But Pac-Man Jones, he put on a show between a return and a couple of picks of Eli.
Yep. The only one that we didn't mention that was on my list was the 99-yard drive to beat the Cardinals, Kenny Britt in the back of the end zone.
Triple zeros.
And Vince at triple zeros.
And so Vince was just drawing stuff up in the dirt. That's what
I've heard some of those stories from
Justin,
Mac.
that was the craziest thing that I learned from former Titans wide receivers at post-career here is like, hey, you know that he was just kind of drawing stuff up, and Mike Heimerdinger was ready to murder him. But
crazy.
He just. And he just got lucky and I forget how many plays were in the drive.
Oh, it was a long drive.
It was, 17, 18 play drive, something like that. And Damian Williams and Kenny Britt are like, yeah, man, we were just laughing because he was just like,
you go
right
here.
there. Yeah.
You go out 10 yards, come back, you run a post over here.
Go past that Park Buick right there, turn around, and I'll be right there for whatever.
It's like recess.
Just
I know.
To get that lucky that many times. And the other part is they beat Ken Wisenhunt.
Yeah, they did. Not a bad thing. Recess and Cheesecake Factory, the Vince Young story. 30 for 30. Coming up, Ron Slay will join us. We'll talk a little bit of Tennessee baseball, a little bit of Titans, a little bit of life with Slay as always next. Ramon and Will, 104.5 The Zone, fueled by Scooters Coffee, locally owned near you in Rivergate, Smyrna, Brentwood, White House, or Mount Juliet. Alongside Rhett Bryant, I'm Will Bowling, joined in this fourth and final hour by our very good friend, television's, 3HL's, Tennessee's, Ron Slay. What's up, Slay? How are you?
Man, what's up, Will Lee? How you doing, brother? Welcome back.
I'm great, thank you. I want to first of all thank you for filling this seat so well last week for Savage Radio. I had a lot of people ready to fire me, so clearly you did great. And I want to just separate myself from the B- that Ramon Foster gave you. Clearly, you get only A+ from me, Slay. So I will first of all start with that.
Will Lee, I appreciate that. I told Savage, man, don't worry about it. I will in the fall be dropping his class, and I will be picking up Will Lee's class. I think that history of rock is way cooler than geology, what Savage was trying to teach anyway. So I'm cool with that, dog. Hope you enjoyed your vacay.
Yeah, it was great. It was good. It was good. Well, we've got a pretty big series coming up this weekend in Fayetteville, Slay. What are the vibes? How are you feeling about this Tennessee team that doesn't suck as much anymore? And
hold on, Will. I just jumped in the truck. My bad. And
You're good.
Knocked out my Bluetooth.
You're good. Tennessee, Arkansas this weekend. How are you feeling?
Man, I'm geeked. I'm geeked about it. We had Arbison on yesterday,
nice.
Man, and it seems like they're ready. You know, and then the mentality, being able to talk to him and hear that kind of eased me a little bit. Him saying, that, a lot of times, like, we like playing on the road because, the camaraderie, and this as an athlete, being on the road and being in that hotel, eating your meals together, breakfast, like you form a bond that's kind of different, especially when it's not just one game. Like they go up there for baseball and it's a series. I related to basketball, kind of tournament style. When you go on the road, man, it's just you guys, and you hunker down. You depend on each other. Like you make it goes as far as like you making sure your roommate he's up. You knocking on the door before you go down to breakfast to go get your other partners up. Like everybody moves as one, and that's what you need going into a road environment, especially as Rockers is. Arkansas gonna be like man Savage was talking about it earlier in the week. Like, dog, I wanted to go to Arkansas.
Yeah.
Like, when you think about it, they don't have a pro sports team. The pro sports team is the Razorbacks in every sport, too. Not only basketball, not only football, not only baseball, but track, man, everything. Like, so that's pretty dope. That's a pretty dope experience when the whole town, and I call it town because it's a country town, the whole town is coming out to go and support you, man. And that facility that they have up there, like I rode by it when I first did a game.
Yeah.
As a commentator, you get to kind of, venture around the campus. As a player, you go straight to the tunnel, you off the bus, and you go straight and play the game, get out there and get on about your way. I got to witness it, and they were playing the game when we were leaving one time or practicing or something, and it was packed out there. I'm like, wow, dog, this is a hell of an experience. So, man, Arkansas fans are crazy, just as crazy as Vol Nation. We probably way more crazier, but I give them a little love. But this is going to be a hell of an environment, man, for a bunch of guys that seem to, when they are clicking, play better when the lights are brightest with their back against the wall when they're doubted.
I agree, Slay. And it's interesting you bring that up about Brendan Arvidsson. And Tony Vitello was doing an interview during the SEC tournament where he mentioned, we've not really had, leadership issues with this team. Like, the vibe around this team's kind of been good all year. We just haven't really, had that level of consistency and piece together an entire weekend. And tell you what, the guy you had on, Brendan Arvidsson, is one of the big reasons why they are starting to surge a little bit and peak at the right time. But clearly this is another team, Slay, that has taken on the personality of Tony Vitello. It's just so funny to me. Like, you've talked to Tony a lot. You guys have had Tony on the show plenty of times. And, I've talked with him, and a lot of Tennessee fans, I think, know the real Tony. But Tony Vitello is as competitive of a human being as there is in college athletics. Isn't it kind of funny, though? I feel like that's not really him sometimes. Like, do you get that vibe just talking to him? Like, you have him on air, like there's a Tony Vitello in between the white lines, and then you guys get a very different Tony Vitello when you sit down with him, and he's a lot more of a relaxed human being that's not really quite as on edge as people think he is when you talk to him, on the air or even off air.
Yeah, I think it's wild, man. Even talking to Arvidsson, like, the way he explained it, I was asking him, hey, man, do y'all have to sometimes go to Coach Vitello and be like, hey, Coach, be cool, calm down, we got it. And he was like, no, actually, he's usually even keel.
Yeah.
But the funny thing is, hold on, my man. My bad, Jay. Let me get off Bluetooth. How about that? Let's do that.
He texted me and asked me if we could hear him okay. It sounds like you're on speaker.
Yeah. All right, I was talking on my little glasses. All right. So this is the thing, man. The exterior, I think, is a front for what's going on inside of him.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I do think he's cool, calm, collected. Like, if it was Grey's Anatomy, he'd be Dr. Dreamy. Like, you know what I'm saying? But when you look at him, like, on the outside, he has it's this approach of chaos going on. I'm frantic. I'm living on the edge. But, man, actually, man, dude's a cool, calm, collected guy. You know what I'm saying? So I think, man, when you go out there and you present that, you live up to it. And the competitive edge is something that we all know comes out when you're right there on the white lines. But I think he lives the same way outside of the white lines as well. We just don't get privy to it because he's not on social media or anything. But like you heard when he said, man, we partied. I got a call from Arkansas's coach, and I was sure trying to knock the cobwebs off from the night before. You know what I mean? So that's Tony V. That's Tony V, and that's why we love him.
Ronald Sylvester Slade joining us here on Ramon and Will. And he is telling us right now that this program has no ceiling. Hey, big man, I'm thinking about the brevity of this 3-game series in this super regional. Yeah. For recency history under Vitello's career as the guy with the Vols, and knowing Van Horn is basically his mentor and, where he spent so much time in that program. Can you properly put into words how big this is? I mean, clearly it's a super regional to get to Omaha to play at Rosenblatt Stadium for the chance at a title, but it's so much more than that for both of these teams.
Yeah, it's one thing to go through your match and finish it, and then you get a bow from Mr. Miyagi. And you go back in the training room, and Mr. Miyagi pats you on your head, says, good job, Daniel, son. Terrific. But now this is an opportunity for you to have to go fight Mr. Miyagi. Like, everything he's taught you and learned, like, there's no more congratulations. Yeah, you won. You beat Cobra Kai. All that's good. But now you got to face the big dog to get back to where the standard is that you've already set. Like, the reason I was saying Tennessee sucked a month and a half ago is because they did. They weren't living up to the potential or where their talent level can be when they all play in sync together. And I think that was what Tony V was thinking at the same time when he was tweaking the lineups and trying to get things right. So the standard, like Coach Tomlin said, is the standard. And it's the standard because this is what Vitello is. He said it this way. But now you get the big stage to fight your mentor. It doesn't get any bigger. And I think if it was in Knoxville, it'll be added pressure. But with it being in Arkansas, I think all the pressure actually lies on Arkansas.
Totally
so it's up to them. Like, those people are looking over like, oh, yeah, the fans anyway. Like, yeah, we got Danielson coming in here. Mr. Miyagi, he's the man. It's time for him to get over the hump. And, man, can you imagine they go down 1-0 in the series, lose Saturday, and what that heat and pressure would be like on Sunday? Man, I think this stage right here, this is one of the best that Tennessee has faced because of what's going on outside of anything they faced going in Omaha.
You're right about that because that Hogs fan base probably feels like this is their best chance to get to Omaha and get the hardware. I want to pivot for a minute. We've been talking Titans throughout the morning, too, in addition to Vols. And we were talking about one of the more crowded positions going into minicamp next week and going into training camp in a few weeks. There's 13 wide receivers in this. And, of course, we know where your love for Traylon Burks lies as he comes off of injury. That's going to be crazy to see how that stuff is sorted out. So when we were discussing that, we were thinking about you, and I was thinking about this segment and this hour of Ramon and Will. But we did a fun exercise before you got on about Will put me on spot and said, hey, what's your top 5 plays in Titans history that's not the Music City Miracle? And I gave an example of 5 and then a couple of honorable mentions. Then I started thinking about some other things. But From you seeing this club, give me Ron Slay's top 5 Titans plays that are not the Music City Miracle. I put you on the spot, I know.
Yeah, I'm cool. I love the spot. Just put a light with it, too. Make it the spotlight if you're going to put me on it.
Got to shine.
Listen, the first thing that comes to mind is the Derrick Henry play.
Yeah.
99-yard run.
Like that right there, that was everything that the Titans embodied. That was next level. That we started to know this young man is not human. And we do have an alien. I think the second one for me, and then no particular order at all, but Eddie George and him and Ray Lewis going head up. I thought that right there, man, that entire matchup, but in particular, man, the play where Eddie was stripped by Ray Lewis. I believe it was an interception, and Eddie kind of had it in his hand, but he kind of stripped him of it. That was a heck of a play.
You're talking about that's the home loss in 2000, the year they should have won the Super Bowl.
Yep,
that was it. That was the Murphy's Law game where everything that could happen did. That was Al Del Greco's last game as a kicker in the National Football League, and I know the one you're talking about. Ray comes in as Eddie has taken the ball and has it, I think, in his left arm, and he just swiped and ran and gone.
Yep, that was so painful.
Yep,
that was so painful. I think, man, it's funny. Like it's kind of like a player what you answered me this, Rhett, because you remember the ones that hurt the most more than the ones that were celebrated.
Like the Algie Crumpler fumble in 2008 season.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. Combine that one with the Cincinnati game when we know we got it. We know we hosted the AFC Championship.
3 INTs, right?
3 INTs, man. That right there hurt. I also what's another one? I want to do one from Chris Johnson era, but man, everything was such a blur with him because he was a blur. Like, you just get him the ball. I really felt like, I don't know if everybody out there remembers Tecmo Bowl, but the old game, the old Nintendo game, like what you used to do with Bo Jackson is give him the ball, and Bo Jackson would run behind the line of scrimmage till he got to the sideline, and then he would just break it, and no one could catch him. Maybe Lawrence Taylor on that game.
Right.
That's what I felt like it was watching Chris Johnson the entire season. Sidebar, Willie
Gault could zigzag in that same team right there.
Willie could too.
He
on
could.
The kickoffs. He
another Vol, another VFL.
That's
but
right.
man, those were the two weapons if you were playing as the Raiders in Tecmo Bowl. You're right.
Gosh, dog. Oh my gosh. So that was man. Those are some of the moments. But it's like a play. We have so many highs. But the ones that I remember are the ones, man, where it's like we kicked ourselves in the teeth, man.
Yeah, you did the dark passenger edition of this. But you know what, though? That's an interesting perspective.
Yeah, I like
because, when you think of top plays, it doesn't mean that it doesn't. You took it as it means top plays in your mind that not necessarily are positive outcomes.
Right. We were teetering on, man. So imagine like where we say this team has been these last 2 or 3 years. Like, we've had some rough years as a Titans franchise. But, man, just as many rough years we had, man, imagine how many times we've been right there on the cusp. Mm-hmm. And those ifs and fifths would have happened. And, boy, this is a 2 Super Bowl franchise right now. And that's, you know what I mean? We're just talking about just the Titans franchise, not the Oilers or anything. Titans franchise. This is a 2 Super Bowl win franchise, man. The things could bounce right. And I'm not saying we got to have a lucky season all the way through. Just we one play away. That's what I'm saying. Give me that one play, and then let's go play it out anywhere else. And it's a different outcome to me.
That 66-yard touchdown for Chris Johnson in Kansas City, the one I always think of. Where he played the bongo drums afterwards.
Yeah, that was Thunder and Lightning.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that was the day that he and Lindell White set the franchise record for rushing in a single game, 332 yards between the two of them.
Crazy.
Man, I'm telling you.
Because Lindell had an 80-yard run in that game.
Yeah, right. right?
Big heavy Lindell. Heavy Lindell.
Yeah, he was on that tequila diet back then.
Me and the TGI Fridays, baby. Let's get it on.
Slay, on the way out, wanted to ask you about Game 1 of the NBA Finals last night because every time people turn off an Indiana Pacers game with about 8 minutes left, they just flip it. They got them right where you want them when they are down by double digits with 3 minutes left. How in the world do they keep doing this?
Man, they do it every single time. It's amazing. I will say, man, this is the second time that I've seen OKC, the coach, in a little bit of disarray. Indiana played their style, and for some odd reason, OKC decided to match it in the fourth quarter instead of completely having a dominant force inside, where there'd be Hartenstein, control of the boards, or somebody just discouraging a guy to drive knowing that help would be there. Indiana went small. Toppin made some big-time shots. Nembhard, who we watched in college, this is the other reason I think college should be connected to the NBA, because, like, guys will act like Nembhard hasn't been this. You accept the role when you go into the professional ranks to be maybe a defensive stopper or a floor general as a point guard, or maybe just a rebounder and a shot blocker. It's almost like, man, when guys start scoring, it's like, oh, where did he get this from? This has been who Nembhard was. So to see Rick Carlisle make the adjustment and take Halliburton off the ball.
Oh. The Oklahoma City Thunder might have cut Slay's phone line. Oh, we lost you for a second. There we go. We got you back again.
Oh, wow.
You're good.
Well, guess what? I was over by the Titans facility, so it'll do that by Metro Center every now and then. But this is the thing, that so to take Nembhard and understand that Nembhard, you're going to be our guy, and we take Halliburton off the ball, I think it threw a monkey wrench in OKC's plan, because you stop the guy that leads the team.
Sure.
But they had other guys that have stepped up and wasn't bashful at all. Obi Toppin made some big-time shots. The way they all combined and hit the boards, I haven't seen OKC get dominated on the boards like that. As far as their starting five goes, I don't think since maybe early in the season.
Wow.
But you got to get more from Chet Holmgren. He has to have an impact. Hartenstein has to have an impact. These guys have to be able to be big and be who they are and make the Indiana convert to you. Just because they go small don't mean you have to go small. The last 5 minutes of the game, it wasn't a big on the floor. Like that's okay, but that's not who you are. You play with Hartenstein, you play with Holmgren. Why are they both sitting out? So I think the adjustment got to be made. They learn on the fly, but this is how it goes. The series never starts until the road team wins a game, and we got it right here in historic fashion too.
I like it. They were like plus 550, the Pacers, to win the whole series. Like almost disrespectful how little of a chance odds makers have given them, and they've just gone and won game one on the road. Slay, we are adding to our prayer list your knees. I know this has not been a fun process for you, so I feel bad that Michael Jackson has caused you so much pain in a musical. But all of our best to you, and we appreciate you joining us with Big Savage, Ramon Foster out this morning.
Yeah, man, no doubt. Y'all holding it down, man. He definitely caused me pain, but I will bounce back. I'm going to get this knee replacement, but I'm going to be back brand new. This will be my first birthday that I ain't been able to dunk, man.
Oh.
So I've been able to dunk every birthday, so I ain't no way I'm going to go out there.
That's a hell of a streak, man.
June 29th, man. Hopefully I got the knee replacement by then.
Okay. I was about to say, it better not be today. I was like, you buried the lead if you've been on here this whole time. Ron Slay, 3HL, 3 to 6, SEC Network. Thank you, Slay. Good to talk to you.
All right, shout out to all the zebras. Hey, and a little inside on the zebra. The guy that bought the zebra, he has 3 other zebras.
What? Wow.
Yeah, I found that out last night. He has 3 other zebras, man. So
and one rogue one.
Yeah, the one that got away. Wow. Okay.
And one rogue.
Good to know. Thank you, Slay.
Thank you, brother.
There's Ron Slay with us this morning.
I'll tell you this. He's the second person I know that got those Ray-Ban Meta glasses.
So cool.
I think I want some
They're
of
awesome.
those. And they make them in prescription and transition lenses
right.
to when you go outside. I'm like, you know what? That might be a purchase.
That would be cool to see. You could do some cool content, too, of like your eyes and ears from the Titans radio booth at a certain place or in Nissan Stadium.
Maybe.
Like, there'd be a lot of people that'd be interested in that perspective.
Maybe.
I like it. All right, headlines on the way out. We'll get you on your way and wrap up the show and the week coming up next.
Two Rivers Ford announces employee pricing for everyone. Every tradesman, every dad, every rising star. You pay what we pay. Two Rivers Ford. Locally owned. American made.
Yes, it is. It is Friday as we wrap up the show and the week here on 104.5 The Zone. Rhett Bryan and Will Bowling. Appreciate you hanging out with us, Rhett. It's been fun.
Sir Charles Jones.
That's right.
With one of the great jams of the last 20 years.
That's how we end Friday every week.
As you should. Absolutely.
It gets me more excited for Titans practice, too, hearing this song.
Oh, yeah.
It means we'll be hearing it at Ascension St. Thomas Sports Park very soon.
Oh, yeah. No, listen, there are songs, and you talk about a topic over the summer.
Yeah.
There are songs that stand the test of time.
Yes.
And there are songs that are overdone. Mm-hmm. There are songs that stand the test of time.
Yeah.
And that's also subjective. That is opinion-based. But there are. And there are some that are universally thought in those things.
I love it.
Maybe we can talk about that later on. But I'm glad to have hung out for you while Big Ramon is taking some much-needed time off. And it's been fast these last couple of days.
It has.
I spent an hour with you Wednesday and then almost 8 hours now of the last 2 days. And it has gone lightning fast.
It's been fun. Good
guests, good topics, good questions, good interaction with people on the phones and in the bank chat, F&M bank chat. And
love it. It's been quick. Some headlines on the way out this morning. Another conference finalist in a Big Four American sport has been fired. Fired their coach. Peter DeBoer fired by the Dallas Stars after making the Western Conference final in the National Hockey League. So now Tom Thibodeau and the Knicks fired.
After making the Eastern Conference finals in the NBA.
And Peter DeBoer, I wish the Preds would go get him. They won't. They're sticking with Andrew Burnett. But it's kind of like how in the NFL we talk about there are certain coaches that if they became available, you would probably go fire your coach to hire that guy, namely Tomlin, Mike. Like if Mike Tomlin got fired by the Steelers after a bad season.
How about an example this year?
Right.
In Gerard Mayo.
Mm-hmm. Mike Vrabel.
I mean.
Yeah, for sure.
There are instances where that is a thing.
Peter DeBoer is the kind of coach that, like, now that he's available, I wonder if there are organizations, namely this one, that may more closely consider their own head coach situation. I don't think that's going to happen here, but I would like it if they did. I'd rather have Peter DeBoer than Andrew Burnett, personally, at this point. Not personal to Andrew. I think, has potential, but I would rather have Peter DeBoer myself. So, anyway.
Once he got out of the Sharks organization, it felt like every time Peter DeBoer had some success and maybe had an off year, like in Vegas, he was let go.
Yeah.
Which the NHL is a turntable.
It is. It turns quickly. No doubt about it. I'm told we have exclusive audio this morning of Aaron Rodgers meeting with his new teammates in Pittsburgh. Justin, what can you tell us?
From the depths of Egypt, 41-year-old quarterback, fresh off ayahuasca, Aaron Rodgers has risen. We learned that he will be in Pittsburgh and signing with those in the Steel City. We've also learned this morning that Aaron Rodgers has met with his teammates. And we have audio that has surfaced of that meeting.
Oh, okay.
And he has a dream for the Steelers.
Thank you. Thank you. Hopefully that'll keep away the bad energy troll. I had a dream last night. I dreamt I was a dove flying over the sea. And then I dove into the ocean. And I swam with the dolphins. I was two animals joined as one, which meant good things are coming.
Ladies and gentlemen, Aaron Rodgers is a Steeler.
Thank you. Hopefully that'll keep...
So somebody got a parabolic mic pointed to the yurt where there was a peyote pipe being passed around.
Oh, very nice.
That's really good, Jayhawk. That's good.
Nice.
Very well done. And I loved your lead-up bed underneath you when you were introducing it. Yeah. It kind of sounded like we were getting ready for Russell Crowe to step out and fight another gladiator battle for just a moment.
Right. That's right. I like it. Well done.
Audio straight out of Egypt.
Well done. Straight from Egypt.
Nice.
More headlines this morning. Clemson quarterback Cade Klubnik tells Andy Staples, Rhett Bryan, he has been studying two NFL quarterbacks' film. You are never, I could give you a million guesses. You would never guess one of these quarterbacks who he's been studying.
In other words, what you're telling me is he should not have mentioned these two quarterbacks to Andy Staples. So, he's not saying, I studied Eli Manning.
No,
I studied Peyton Manning. I studied Phillip Rivers.
Joe Burrow, one of them, a worthy pursuit.
And that makes sense.
And Bailey Zappi.
Bailey Zappi.
Kate Klubnik tells Andy Staples he has been studying Joe Burrow and Bailey Zappi film. Quote, I just know I can still get better. That's exciting when you're good at something and you know you can still get better. Okay, Bailey Zappi. Sure.
There must be something he sees in his play and film that is relatable, I guess.
Sure.
Other than that, I don't, I would not have had that on the bingo card today.
Yeah, right. Anyway, Cade Klubnik, a strong Heisman Trophy contender this season in college football. I think we as a college football watching people have given up on Dabo Swinney and Clemson being a national title contender. They're a national title contender again this year. They are loaded at the wide receiver position. They are loaded on defense, as always.
Well, and he's one of many names that will be watched as potentially the 2026 class of quarterbacks in the NFL draft.
100%.
He and Drew Aller from Penn State. I mean, there's a list.
And the addition of Tom Allen, their new defensive coordinator as well, coming over from Penn State. Penn State goes and gets Jim Knowles from Ohio State, and the coordinator circles kind of change a little bit. That, to me, is the interesting part, Rhett, when you talk about the money it takes now to build a roster. Coaches have a little bit more job security, I think, than what they used to because schools have to pay players now, so not as willing to pay buyouts for head coaches that they, maybe want to push out the door. And Dabo Swinney's not being pushed out any doors, but the point is the coordinator hiring cycle is where I think teams now can try to go that extra notch up because those buyouts and those salaries, while expensive, are not astronomical Jimbo Fisher, Texas A&M buyout number levels.
College football for years has been the minor leagues of the National Football League. It truly is now with the way it's structured.
Right.
Because, that is why you're seeing the Mike Tannenbaums going to North Carolina to be a general manager, why Jim Nagy left the Super Bowl to go to Oklahoma to be the general manager of their athletics, is because it is a straight-up business now.
Mm-hmm. Totally. So, Clemson, a team to watch. I think Josh Pate had them as his number 1 or 2 team in the country entering the season, at least top 5 team. So, Cade Klubnik, remember that. On 3, Andy Staples, everything he puts out, I'm in instant read. So,
it seems like yesterday he was a freshman and was getting pummeled.
Right.
By the Vols.
I know. 100% in the orangest orange bowl of all time.
Yeah.
Joe Milton threw an orange 100 yards. Good times. That is the show, and that is the week. Been a fun one.
It has.
Tennessee and Arkansas on the Vol Network this weekend, starting tomorrow at 4, Sunday at 2. The great John Wilkerson will have the calls for you this weekend. We are back at it Monday for the 104.5 The Zone Golf Classic with a new sound to Ramon and Will. Our music, our new intro, everything will be ready. We're looking forward to it. Rhett, thank you again. Been a fun couple days.
Glad to do it. Ready to see Biggie back in the seat next week.
Ramon Foster with us next week. A big week on the show. Next week, a new era of Ramon and Will beginning. Back at it Monday morning, 6 a.m. The Buck Rising Show is next.